Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Menlo Park City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 16th, 2009. At this time, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. All council members are present. I apologize, everyone, for being a bit tardy this evening. I was stuck in traffic coming over from our neighbor, Palo Alto. I blame that on Palo Alto. So we're going to go ahead now and start off the dais. To our far left, we have our city attorney, Bill McClure. To his immediate right, we have our city manager, Ms. Starla Jerome Robinson. To the far left on the dais, we have Councilmember Catherine Carlton. To my immediate left, we have the Vice Mayor, Cecilia Taylor. To my right, we have Councilmember Betsy Nash. To her right, we have Councilmember Drew Combs. And then off the dais, we have our city clerk, Ms. Judy Herron. If anyone wants to comment on any of the items this evening, it's really important to fill out a comment card found in the back of the room, and then go ahead and provide that to Ms. Herron so you want to speak on that item. At this time, if everyone could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, at this time I'd like to go ahead and call up Park and Recreation Program Assistant David Hill, Recreation Supervisor Todd Zito, and Park and Recreation Chair Chris Harris, and Park and Recreation Commissioner Jennifer Baskin. If you guys could join me up here. So what we're going to go ahead and do right now is it's Park and Recreation Month, and we have a proclamation to go ahead and read. So we like to start off the beginning of every meeting and really talk about who we are as a city and and recognize those who display our values in the community. And we are here tonight to start off to celebrate Park and Recreation Month here in July 2019, and what better month than we're all out enjoying the wonderful weather and really at that enjoying that tradition we have of coming together on the 4th and then barbecuing throughout the summer, which we all do. So I'm going to go ahead and read the proclamation, and then I believe we actually even have a video to go ahead and do, but I might ask everyone to sit down for that before we do the video. So, whereas Park and Recreation promotes physical, emotional, and mental health and wellness through organized and self-directed fitness, play, and activity, and whereas Park and Recreation supports the economic vitality of communities by attracting new businesses, promoting community revitalization, increasing tourism, providing jobs, and generating revenues, and whereas Park and Recreation creates memorable experiences throughout engaging programs, dynamic events, and new opportunities designed to get people involved in their communities. This is especially true in Menlo Park, by the way. We're incredibly proud of our Park and Rec department. And whereas Park and Recreation fosters social cohesiveness in communities by celebrating diversity, providing inclusive services, modeling compassion, promoting social equity, connecting social networks, and ensuring all people have access to its benefits. And whereas Parks and Recreation supports human development and endless learning opportunities that foster social, intellectual, physical, and emotional growth in people of all ages and abilities. And whereas Parks and Recreation sustains and stewards our natural resources by protecting habitats and open space, connecting people to nature, and promoting the ecological function of parkland. And whereas Park and Recreation strengthens community identity by providing facilities and services that reflect and celebrate community character, heritage, culture, history, aesthetics, and landscape. And whereas Park and Recreation supports safe, vibrant, attractive, progressive communities that make life better through positive alternatives offered in their recreational opportunities. Now therefore be it proclaimed, the Menlo Park City Council proclaims July 2019 as Parks and Recreation Month, and in doing so recognizes the importance of access to local parks and facilities for the health, wellness, development, inspiration, and safety of its citizens, and urges them to use and enjoy its parks, trails, facilities, and recreations opportunities because parks make life better. And there's a little R reserved on that, just so you know. The rights are reserved on that. So with that, would someone like to speak for the group? Please.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Christopher Harris, and I'm the chair of the Parks and Recreation Commission. And it's really exciting to have a whole month devoted to Parks and Recreation. The one thing, though, I want to highlight is the incredible work that the staff here in the Parks and Recreation Department provide. The work that they do is pretty incredible. They work across a range of areas. They work with the very youngest members of our community to the very experienced members of our community over through our Senior Citizens Program, and then with everyone in between. They run the social services program, they keep our parks up and running, and they're always trying to come up with creative ideas to get more community members involved. All of us have been to events. We've either had our kids experience the Parks and Rec directly through the different programs. We've had family members that we've brought out to the big city events, whether it's the concert series in the park during the summer, or a number of the other events like the Great Egg Hunt and the July 4th Parade that we have every year. They go above and beyond, and so it's really terrific that we have this opportunity to recognize their hard work. So thanks a lot, everyone who's been working with the Parks and Recreation Department. Thanks.
Great. So what I'd like to do is invite our colleagues down to go ahead, and we're going to take a picture all together to celebrate, if that's okay with everyone. Yeah. So we'll back up.
It's getting better.
Who wants to hold the?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do it.
We'll do a joint. Yeah. All right. So inclusive. We don't always paper. We're supposed to be.
And now we have a brief video presentation to celebrate.
My favorite part about the 4th of July event today is the variety. There's just something for everyone, and I'm really digging the music. There's so much to do, and classes for everyone.
Best thing is being up on what the community is doing. A very good place to come visit.
We love the parade, the band. We're feeling the sense of community. We love the summer concerts every Wednesday night. We look forward to those a lot.
We love coming to the summer concert series when we come to visit my parents. We love the Menlo Park Library. I also grew up going there, but the kids section for her is awesome, so we love going around there.
We come every week, and we love the music and meeting our friends here and drinking a little wine and just hanging out.
Our community services department is very vast. We offer childcare, sports, recreation, gymnastics. We offer so much opportunity.
We have like 8 or 9 kids going through this program, and it seems to provide them with a really good experience. The boys love it because they can just run around like crazy people and jump in the foam pit. They like the foam pit. The girls like more of the walking on the beams and doing the floor stuff.
It's a good place for seniors to get to come here and relax and enjoy each other's company and also to learn something.
They have just a whole bunch of different activities. Ceramics, exercises, English classes, Spanish, dance classes, computers.
It's very inviting, it's very informal. When I came to this location, I just loved it.
We've been participating over maybe half a year. My boys really enjoy it. It's easy to sign up for classes. The communication back and forth with the staff has been great. And my kids enjoy their instructors.
My younger brother, he likes to come here because, you know, there are a lot of kids for him to play with. They have structured activities here, and he's not just, you know, sitting at home all day staring at the TV or playing Xbox. He has people to interact with and, you know, new activities to do. He, you know, would never be able to go swimming because, you know, his mom is at work all day, I'm at work all day. It's just, you know, a lot of stuff for him to do here that he would not be able to do otherwise. It's a great community here. It's safe. I don't mind my kids being here. I don't have to worry about, you know, what's going to happen to them here. And, you know, I know that someone's keeping a good eye on them, and I know that they matter to the people here, and their safety matters, and their health matters, and, you know, their feelings matter. So, I mean, I think that all ties into a sense of community, and it's just a great one.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead now and move on to our next agenda item this evening, which is public comment. Under public comment, the public may address the City Council on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the City Council once through public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The City Council cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the City Council cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Ms. Herron, do we have any public comment speakers this evening? We do not. Great. So we're going to go ahead now and move on to commission reports. F1, consider applicants and make appointment to fill one vacancy on the Finance and Audit Committee. At this time, we're going to go ahead and turn the meeting over to Ms. Herron, who will take verbal nominations.
Thank you, Mayor Mueller. So at this time, we have one vacancy on the Finance and Audit Committee. We have 2 applicants. At this time, we'll take voice nominations.
I'm going to go ahead and nominate Mr. Soffer. Any other nominations? Mr. Combs?
I'll nominate Sean McGuire.
Thank you. And on the dais, you do have ballots. If you could complete those, and I will come up and collect them. After tallying the votes, it is in favor of Mr. Sean McGuire. So if by acclamation we can appoint Mr. McGuire to the Finance and Audit.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead now and move on to our consent calendar. Does anyone want to pull any of the items on the consent calendar? Excuse me, do we have any consent calendar speakers, Ms. Herron? Okay. Whoever the consent item speaker is, please go ahead and come forward. Hello. Hello, Ms. Grove.
Hello, I'm Karen Grove, and I am a member of the Housing Commission, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I just wanted to point your attention, since this is a consent agenda item and you guys have a lot on your plates, to the discussion of the Housing Commission Q&A and our recommendations. And I hope that you'll recommend that staff include our recommendations in all of this. I don't think it should be controversial. We would like to add into our documents, just update them a little bit to indicate that we would like the tenant selection criteria to include Menlo Park live and work preferences. In addition, we'd like to make exceptions to standard property management, credit, and criminal history processes to make sure we have a screening in tenant selection process. And we want to make sure that all revenue derived from these assets, which is an awesome feature. This is super exciting, and I hope you'll be as excited as I am about going forward with it. We would like all the revenue derived to be reserved and allocated to support affordable housing activities and programs. And finally, we would just like the city to make an expressed commitment to preserve the assets. There is a right to acquire the assets between 15 and 30 years from now. And we just want to have the city express an intent to do that and keep them deed restricted as affordable. Thanks. It's all in the staff report. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment speakers? I don't see it on here for some reason. Why is it not?
Hello, Council. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah. Good evening, Ms. Bramlett.
Thank you. I would like you to actually pull this item and have more details added to the staff report, or at least discuss it more thoroughly. I did carefully read it, and I was concerned about a number of details not being there, as well as a few that are without the background. I feel this seems to be a new organization and that not many currently join as per the report or belong to it. And joining would signal that we endorse this. So I think it's good to get more information. I would be interested to know the background correspondence or any background details that led to this. I mean, it did seem rather sudden. And then I would like to see included, which I tried to find out on the internet and I couldn't. I was a little disturbed not to see a web presence, but more details about their history, their current funding sources, their outcomes, beneficiary impact, and even an independent audit report. Size of their organization, current membership, properties currently owned, and even our expected yearly dues. I mean, there was an item that talked about a minimum of $1,000, but I couldn't quite get a picture as to what we would be expected to do. I also wanted more insight into what's in it for them in terms of their business model. So I was also a little concerned, actually more than concerned, I was somewhat perplexed about the listed plans to buy 777 Hamilton Avenue for a rental property. I think in general we need more home ownership, but the report didn't detail the city's background with the properties that became 777 Hamilton Avenue. And we used to own 7 properties that collectively became most of that. They were sold in 2012 when the city was forced to dissolve its former community development, their CDA. They were sold to Greenheart. So as public funds presumably were used to make those original purchases, and public funds may even have been used to help Greenheart, although I don't know the detail, I was a little wondering about why that property in particular was listed as something we could buy in 15 years as we used to own it. So I just had a lot of questions reading the report, and it just could be someone has this information and it's not included. But I would like to have more details in the report, and I hope that you will agree to pull it and at least discuss it in more detail. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. With that, there are no other current speakers? No. So, Ms. Peruzzi?
This is awkward, thank you. My understanding is that this is a rare and pressing opportunity that our community has to provide missing middle housing. and that becoming a member of community housing agency will facilitate that, and that delaying on this might make us miss the window. And I think people in the Housing Commission know more about this than I do, but I would encourage you to maybe dig into that a little bit with staff. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, does anyone want to pull any of the items from the consent calendar?
I'd like to have just a direction comment onto, if that's all right.
All right.
Without actually pulling it.
Okay, which items?
G2. It says universal collection of waste for apartment buildings. I understood that to mean it's something that they're looking into. I understood that to mean looking into things like providing composting to apartment buildings, where currently everyone in an apartment building wants to compost, but they're not being offered that bin. And I believe that the city manager also interpreted it that way, and I was just going to put it on record that that was one of the things that would be covered under the universal collection as they look into this. For G4, I think the online tutoring is great. My daughter did it at one point, but we had one really good one and one really bad one. It would be nice to have some feedback on how that is working. I don't want us to be funding something that doesn't work for the community, and it would be really nice to make sure that is covered. That we make sure that it's something impactful for the amount of money that we're spending on that.
Okay.
And I agree with Karen Grove on the Menlo Park work-life preference. I thought I read that in what was covered in G6. Pretty sure that was there.
Okay. Do you want to pull G6?
I'm not really sure. It's kind
okay.
of a can of worms. I was very worried about it, but I had a long conversation with the city manager and the city attorney and feel comfortable that it is a good opportunity for the city.
Okay. Anyone else have anything they're interested in pulling or discussing? Yes. Vice Mayor Taylor.
I want to pull G4 and G6.
Okay, we'll go ahead and pull G4 or G6. Any other items anyone wants to pull? No, can I have a motion then for items G1 through 3 and G5? Motion from Councilmember Carlton. May I have a second? Motion from Councilmember Nash. Let's vote. Okay, we're going to hear item G4 right now. Accept and appropriate the California State Library grant in the amount of $95,000 and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary agreements to conduct an after-school homework support center pilot program. Vice Mayor Taylor.
So one of the reasons why I pulled this item, I've been aware of it, and I believe since we're putting together a tutorial program that it is very important to invest in education, and high quality education. So if we set the RFP low, then we do not get, I believe, enough applicants seeking to provide quality education. And so the RFP for this, which is not attached to the staff report, but the fee, I believe, was $42,000, and I believe no one applied for it. So I asked for there to be an increase in the amount that we are willing to pay a consultant to put together a tutorial or to be a coordinator for a tutorial program. So that's not necessarily a question, more than a comment. And the second is thinking about the space over at the library where this will be held. I think it's unrealistic to look at a goal of 75 to 100 students considering the space size. The library isn't adequate size now, and so to try to have a program that size there, I think is unrealistic. And then the last comment is that I know that Khan Academy is a free tutorial service. But we are seeking to pay, and I just wanted to find out why, if there was something special that online service offers that Khan Academy doesn't.
Sean Reinhardt, Library Services Director. Thank you for your very good questions, Mayor Pro Tem Taylor. I'll see if I can address them in order. Related to the position to coordinate the Homework Center, we are pleased to report that we do have 3 interviews lined up for highly qualified applicants to fill that function this week and next. It is true that the initial request for proposals that we put out there did not result in any applicants in the first round. However, we redoubled our efforts and rethought how we might staff that position. And so we do have 3 qualified applicants that we will be interviewing in the next week or 2. So we'll be happy to report back to council with the outcome of that, but we are feeling pretty positive about that. In regard to the size of the Bellhaven Branch Library, it is true that it is not a large facility. However, we believe it is large enough to provide this program. The tutoring sessions themselves are really more like just helping children complete their homework. It's not necessarily giving them new curriculum, so it's really just helping them complete their assignments at the elementary school level. That's typically a 20 or 30-minute endeavor. So we anticipate providing the service in several rounds throughout 2 hours each afternoon. So all 75 students wouldn't necessarily be in the room at the same time. They would probably be in batches of 20 or so over the course of a couple of hours. And then finally, related to the Tutor.com online homework help service, which is a well-established online homework help and tutoring service for all ages, elementary all the way up through college. It is live online with a trained tutor on the other end of the line 7 days per week, 1 p.m. through to 10 p.m., excepting major holidays. This would be available to everyone in Menlo Park who has a Menlo Park library card, which are free. So that sort of sets it apart, makes it a little distinct from Khan Academy, which is more like you kind of just watch videos and kind of take some self-directed tests. This is actually a live person on the other end of the connection with an interactive whiteboard. And many other libraries have used it and found it to be a pretty effective. A lot of positive feedback from the users of the service, which is why we went that route. And it's also pretty cost-effective, actually. It's not particularly expensive for us to implement.
Thank you.
Okay. Kat had her light on first, then I'll come to you. Councilmember Carlton.
Hi. Just keep in your head, I've used that service before with my daughter. Mm-hmm. We had one tutor who was really chatty, and they got to be good friends, but they didn't really focus on their math. Mm-hmm. And I became aware of this, got rid of her, got another one who was less chatty and really helped my daughter a lot, and it was really impactful and great.
Okay,
so
good.
I'm just saying, even to the granularity of the individual tutor, like everything in life, I don't know how you're going to manage that in terms of quality control, but that's why I asked to make sure that we keep an eye on that, because not only is it a matter of the city doesn't want to waste money, but it's a matter of opportunity cost for that child to have something that impacts them and helping them get their homework done and getting the education, because there's always that window of getting the correct education in. And so how you do that is, I'll leave up to you, but do be aware of that. And I would really like to make sure that we have some kind of a benchmarking and feedback on the effectiveness.
Thank you. Those are excellent observations. It is my experience that Tutor.com does produce some pretty comprehensive reports and evaluations of the service, so we'll be sure to keep a close eye on that, and if there are any issues, we'll address them.
Hi, I was wondering if you could repeat the hours that it's available. I just missed it in your...
Tutor.com, it's 1 p.m. to 10 p.m.,
okay,
7 days per week.
1 to 2:10. No,
Sorry,
I was trying to figure out.
1
Okay,
p.m.
1
to 10 p.m.
10
Yeah, that 9-hour period.
Thank you so much.
Okay. I see no other lights on. Can we have a motion? Motion to approve from Councilmember Nash, second by Councilmember Carlton. Go ahead and vote.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great. We're going to go ahead now and move on to item G6. Vice Mayor Taylor.
I don't know who I'm asking questions to.
As far as G6, one of the reasons why I pulled it, Jordan Moss, who is Cal CHA, contacted me, I don't know, maybe about 3 weeks ago to talk about this process around acquiring the 777 Hamilton property. To me, it sounded too good to be true. I did go to the presentation at the Housing Commission meeting last Wednesday, and I still have some concerns, a few of which that our Housing Commission Vice Chair, Ms. Grove, brought up around preference. So we are not allowed, to my understanding, to have a city preference. They would not use our list to exhaust as far as choosing tenants for any of the units that are open. Do I have a clear understanding, or maybe not?
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Taylor. So in the staff report, as Vice Chair Grove pointed out, that was one of the recommendations from the Housing Commission, is that the city's BMR ordinance and guidelines, the preferences established there, be included in any activity or acquisition that Cal CHA conducts within Menlo Park. So, and actually, if I may ask Jordan Moss to please, with Catalyst Housing, to please come up and help me with this item. This is similar to some of our other developments where we have to consider fair housing issues and fair housing law and what can and cannot be included. And there are some regulatory agreements involved in this, and I'll let Jordan talk more specifically to some of the restrictions there or what may be permitted.
Just one clarification. I'm not Cal CHA, representing Cal CHA. Catalyst Housing Group is my company. We do this in conjunction with Cal CHA, but just wanted to make that clarification. And as we discussed last week at the Housing Commission meeting, it is our goal to provide as much affordability as possible for the exact demographic that you're seeking to target here. So it is our intention within the laws of fair housing that exist to do as much targeting, preferences for the local community as possible. And I think one of the concerns was around, I remember a comment was made around the property management company that we generally have been rolling this program out with, who is a large national property management company. They're the third largest in the multifamily industry. And a comment was made around, their programs. We talked about sort of rent-to-income ratios, or making 2.5 to 3 times the rent, which are sort of standard property management policies. And just to remind everyone of the comment that was made in response to that last Wednesday, we're happy to, ultimately the property management company takes direction from ownership. And again, we're happy to bend, change those policies, and as I said, do as much targeting and sort of create preferences for the local community as much as possible within fair housing laws that we and every other property owner have to live within.
Councilmember Carlton.
I'm sorry, I have no idea what you just said. And this gets back to maybe being too politically correct, and I lean towards being a little bit more direct. This has been like my red button for 6.5 years on council. That we have people who desperately need homes. I believe last time I checked, we had 80 some odd families on the list that desperately need better housing situation in Menlo Park. And these are people, the majority of them, who already live or work in Menlo Park. And that's what we're elected for. We're here to fight for those people. And I find it deeply frustrating every time. And I'm learning, but I'm not giving up the fight. That, as I understand it, and our city attorney can correct me if I misunderstood or misspeak on this, that we can only really directly say this house is for only Menlo Park people if we have skin in the game, if we have finances towards that unit. Is that correct?
Yes and no. I mean, to the extent that we have invested dollars in a project, we have a lot greater ability to control. Fair housing laws still apply to the city of Menlo Park, and those caveats. We've done legal analysis through Goldfarb and Lippman with respect to that we can establish certain preferences and priorities for Menlo Park residents and prior Menlo Park residents, specifically targeting the Bellhaven neighborhood because of the demographics and the need. So yes, we can impose those requirements if we are putting money into the game. I think the issue here is we have an applicant where it's a JP8 bonding program, and there are certain requirements of that bonding program and certain other requirements that we can't control. And I think what the applicant is, or from Catalyst is saying, is that essentially to the extent that they are legally permitted to provide preference and lower the standards, that they would, I believe he's saying that they would agree to do so. And so if the council wants to incorporate language into the resolution, we can do that as long as we put the caveat on it, so long as it is legally permissible and does not violate fair housing laws.
Okay. And one of the reasons why I would really like to see any monies that come from this property go into a fund to purchase it, because we have that option. Because once we purchase it, then we have a lot stronger ability, as I understand it, to determine exactly who goes into those units. I don't want to slow this down. I don't want to stop it, because I think it's a really good program. But I feel extremely passionately about making sure that wherever legally possible, we put in those people. And can I agree to vote yes on this? Can we all agree that we'll work with the city attorney to put that language in as strongly as possible in the actual legal agreement, that where to the full extent of the law we are able to have that preference, we do? Is that okay? Do you?
We can put it in the resolution tonight.
It's just something I feel really strongly about, and we can all sit here and we can agree, but I love things actually written in legal speak in the contracts.
Sure.
Because then...
the contract will have to comply with the resolution.
Yes, so I was just saying, that's why I want to see it in writing. If that's not me being a little paranoid, I would feel more comfortable that we have it in writing, so that in the future we always remember that bias, that preference.
Could I add that was the recommendation from the Housing Commission, is that language be, that the resolution move forward, but that it include that language.
Okay.
So so the request would be that if council approves it tonight, that we could add that language, approve it conditional upon adding that language.
So that's where I was going to go. Is there is in your staff report, there are 3 bullet point items on, I don't have the same pagination that you do, but it's in blueprint on I think the second or third page of the staff report, and I think it sounds to me like it is the desire of the council to approve the Housing Commission recommendations and incorporate those 3 provisions into the resolution, which we would then develop language to go into the purchase agreement if and when we are proceeding with a specific project.
I like those 3 points. The only thing I would clarify is when we talk about all revenue derived from these assets to be reserved and allocated to support affordable housing activities and programs, I leave it to my colleagues to discuss, but I think it would be a very prudent thing to put it into a fund so that at the end of 15 years we can purchase the program and then have better control over preferences for Menlo Park people. So I would just say to support. But we could leave it the same with the understanding. I leave it to you to craft those words.
Yeah, I think actually if you look at the second bullet and the third bullet, it may be ultimately, because again, you have to budget for these things, and so typically the preference is it goes there. The third bullet basically says let's preserve these assets
That's what I'm saying.
for affordable
Can we
housing.
make those one or?
So I actually think it makes sense to leave it the way it is,
Okay.
and then as it comes forward and is implemented as revenues come in, then the council makes the decision where it's going to go that's best for affordable housing.
Okay, so I move that we support this with the addition of the suggestions by the Housing Commission.
All right, do we have a second? Okay, the motion on the floor with a second. Does anyone have any more comment on it before we vote?
I have a question.
Vice Mayor Taylor.
My question is about maintenance to the property. Is there a contingency plan? I know that the building is new.
It is new. It's in, well, I should back up and say a specific property has obviously been discussed and mentioned tonight. Generally, the resolution that we've presented is more general in nature, and we have some concerns around talking at lengths about a property that currently is not controlled by our group and may or may not be available in the future. I would say from a maintenance perspective on a new asset that we may be seeking to acquire, and on any asset for that case, substantial due diligence is done during the pre-acquisition, and significant capital reserves are set aside on the front end to address anything that may be an issue day one or in the foreseeable future. And on an ongoing basis, on an annual basis, monthly really, additional cash flow is put into a capital reserve in order to fund any unforeseen capital expenditures on an ongoing basis. And this is another item that we talked about a bit last Wednesday. There are some general metrics that are traditionally used in the institutional multifamily industry about sort of on a per unit, per year basis, how much money should be set aside to fund capital reserves. We go well beyond those metrics because if you're going to be a long-term holder and you're not going to be flipping an asset, a few years later, the costs add up and things happen. And obviously, we would want to be ensured that we have enough money set aside for anything that may occur.
Thank you. My last question is about the property management company, since that's something you do have a choice over. You use FPI for...
We have to date.
Say that again?
Oh, we have to date, yes.
Okay. And so will you be using FPI for the property if you acquire it?
That would be the plan.
Okay. The reason I'm asking you this question is because I don't have that much background information on you, and I haven't looked at enough background information on FPI, and what I did read was not favorable. And so having a company come into Menlo Park that is international, to me, doesn't mean anything. I'd prefer to have a local company because at least they're vested because they've been here. And so I have a concern about that. And is there opportunity to have a different property management company, or is that your only choice?
There is always opportunity. To be clear, they're not international. They are national. They're the third largest national provider of management services at the institutional level for apartment complexes. They've been in this business a long time. As I mentioned, they're the third largest. The reason that we selected them on the front end of this program is that of the 125,000 units or so that they manage, about half of them are market rate and half of them are affordable. They actually started as an affordable group that moved into market rate over time. They've got significant expertise in both. And while they do happen to manage nationally, the focus is most definitely in the western U.S., more specifically, the company's based out of the Sacramento area, and so the Bay Area is a major region for them. All of that said, there is always optionality. It is standard to have an agreement with a property management company that they can be replaced in 30 days for any reason. And so one thing that we like about FPI is that as we have built this program with them, there's some nuance to what we're doing here. There is not an existing pipeline of middle-income restricted housing across the state, which is why we have one of the reasons why we have the housing crisis we have. And we have written a playbook of sorts with FPI that they now understand that we can roll out from one asset to the next as far as how tenants are screened and how we deal with existing residents that may be over income, et cetera. And so it's our goal and our hope to continue with them. They're doing a great job. They're dedicated to it. They continue to add resources and they're excited about growing with our program. But there's always the opportunity, should the need arise, to make a change there.
My concern is the renter, not the property manager, and what the renters experience. And I just want to make sure that whomever is overseeing that property is using best practices.
That's our concern as well, and I can assure you that the property management company is sort of the ownership's tool to ensure that those things happen on a daily basis. This is what we focus on every day, and we, like you, care about the local demographic and want to provide that desperately needed housing for people. And so as the asset manager, which is how Catalyst Housing serves in its role here, we oversee them, we communicate with them on a daily basis, they report to us, and if there's any of those concerns from residents, from others in the community, we address them immediately. But for what it's worth, we've had none of that thus far in our experiences with them.
Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and bring it to a vote.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you very much. So I'm going to make an announcement right now for people who have come this evening for item I-1, which relates to the Willow Village Master Plan project. That item has been pulled and continued, so we will not be hearing that this evening. Our next item right now is a public hearing. Item H1, consider the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve architectural control use permit, heritage tree removal permit, major subdivision and below market rate housing agreement for a 6-unit condominium conversion, the addition of 2 new condominium units, and associated site improvements at 975 Florence Lane. Our senior planner, Karina D. Sandemeyer, will make the presentation. Ms. Sandemeyer.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm Karina Sandmeyer, Senior Planner with the Planning Division, and I'll be giving an overview of the 975 Florence Lane project. So the project includes a number of entitlement requests. One request is for a major subdivision to create 8 condo units by converting 6 existing apartments and constructing 2 new units, and one of those would be a below market rate unit and one would be a market rate unit. The project includes a request for architectural control to construct the 2 new units and for other exterior work. And the rendering on this slide shows how the front building would look facing the street. The project also includes a use permit request to allow work on an existing non-conforming structure that would exceed 50% of the replacement value. So both of the structures on the property are non-conforming with regards to setbacks, and that's pretty common in that area. The request also includes a heritage tree removal, so that would be to allow a Japanese maple heritage tree to be removed. The request is due to the tree's poor health and the space needed to construct a ramp to meet accessibility requirements. The project also includes a below market rate housing agreement, and that's for 1 on-site for sale BMR unit at the moderate income level. So this slide shows the existing site plan with the 2 buildings that are currently there and a pool in the back. And then this slide is the proposed site plan with the pool removed and 2 units added onto the rear building, 1 on the first floor and 1 on the second floor. So this application was submitted under the state density bonus law. The purpose of the law is to encourage and provide incentives to include lower income housing units in development projects. The language of the law is mandatory, and the city must grant the applicant a density bonus that allows the applicant to increase the density above the limits in the zoning ordinance and to allow waivers to development standards if the application of a standard would physically preclude construction of the project. The requested waivers in this case are for reduction in parking from 15 spaces to 11 spaces, and to increase the building coverage from 40% to 53.7%. The project has gone through review at the Housing Commission in August 2018. The Commission recommended approval of the below market rate housing agreement. The project also went to the Environmental Quality Commission in May of this year, and the Commission recommended approval of the heritage tree removal permit. The project went to the Planning Commission in May of this year. The Commission recommended approval with conditions. One condition was for a 2-to-1 heritage tree replacement instead of the 1-to-1 ratio. They also included a condition to keep a condition within the recommended approval requiring the CC&Rs to state that no on-street overnight parking permits will be issued. They also included a condition that the City Council identify which unit is to be designated as the BMR unit and the appropriate income level if the BMR unit is a one-bedroom unit. After the meeting, the City Attorney reviewed this condition and indicated that the application must be processed as submitted. A last condition that was added is that the City Attorney investigate if the project is subject to the state density bonus law, and the City Attorney has reviewed this, and the project is subject to the state density bonus law. We also received some additional correspondence that I gave to Ms. Herron. So we received one letter today from the applicant's attorney. We also received one letter that staff received that didn't go to the City Council email. And that one was also with concerns about parking, as some of the other emails indicated. We also received another email in support today, and that I also gave Ms. Herron a hard copy of that one. And so in conclusion, approval of the project would allow the addition of one market rate unit and one BMR unit on the lot and to increase the city's housing stock. It would allow the buildings to be refreshed and brought up to building code. The waivers from the R3 development standards are necessary for the addition of the 2 new units, and the Planning Commission and staff recommend that the City Council make the necessary findings and take actions for approval of 975 Florence as outlined in the attachment A of the staff report. And that concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. What is going to come next first is we're going to go ahead and see if there's any questions for our senior planner, and then we'll have the applicant make the presentation. Are there any questions from council? Nope. Okay. You're off the hook for the moment. So we're going to go ahead then and allow the applicant to make their presentation.
Yes, good evening. My name is Steve Kelland. I'm the project architect. I want to thank staff for their summary. As noted, we've been through several commissions, all recommending, approval with certain conditions, for the project. I thought I would just summarize a little bit with a little more information on sort of where we've come to date. When we first started this project, it was just an existing 6-unit apartment building. We thought simply we'd try to just subdivide that and, move forward. In discussions with staff and the Housing Commission, however, we understand, the code has a preference for projects that are 5 to 9 units that we provide a below market rate housing, which I think, was a positive. We worked with staff to, take a look at that. It was not economically feasible for us to just take one of the 6 units and turn that into a below market rate housing unit. Our pro forma financials, showed unfortunately a big loss, for that. So we worked with staff to create an option under the state density bonus law, which allows in certain cases, and this one applies, where the maximum density for this particular parcel would be 7 units. Because we were providing below market rate housing, the formulas worked out for us to have 8 units on this site. So we came up with an option to add the 2 new units, which is why that's one of the specific entitlements that's being requested along with the subdivision of the 6 units. So under the state density bonus law, as staff noted, there are a couple things that we are also requesting waivers for. 2 specific items. One has to do with coverage. The existing buildings did not meet the required coverage. They were already over for the lot. So we're requesting that be expanded slightly to allow the 2 new units and the below market rate unit. And then the second item would be for parking. we're requesting the parking waiver in order to allow the below market rate unit. There's also one parking space that of the existing 12 that would have to be forfeited for our accessibility requirement that we need to be provided on site. The other three entitlements that we are asking for are sort of as a result of the 8 units that we're asking to be subdivided. So, as staff noted, in addition to the added units, we're also looking to upgrade the entire property. So there's interior and exterior improvements. I don't think this building has been worked on for many years. So we're looking to improve the look, value of the property with those exterior enhancements, including the 2 new units. I mentioned the accessible parking. The existing parking is at a lower grade than the existing units, so we need an accessible ramp to get up to those units. Unfortunately, there is the Japanese maple, which is a heritage tree. The arborist had reviewed it and said it was in poor health. It also was in the way of this accessible ramp. The site is very constrained, and so we're requesting removal for that. And then in the BMR agreement, we had done, again, analysis on the type of unit and also income level. And in our financial numbers, we're looking at assigning the BMR unit to one of the new units on the rear of the project that would be on the second level. And then we're requesting that be for moderate income level for that 1-bedroom unit. And again, those fall under the state density bonus law that talks about the applicant can review that and decide income level that works with the overall financials for the project and which should be assigned. In this case, there are 2 units that are similar. That's another requirement usually for a below market rate unit, that you're assigning that to another similar unit within the same development. So it would be similar to the other market rate unit that we're proposing to add. So anyway, those are the 5 entitlements that we're asking for your review and approval of. I'm here if you have any other questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Do anyone have any questions of the applicant before we open the public hearing? At this time, we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. We're going to take our first public comment from Ms. Kristen Leap.
I'm short. Hello. I am strongly in favor of the 975 Florence Lane project, especially since it includes below market rate housing. Rents and purchase prices in our area have been increasing at a breakneck pace. My father grew up in Menlo Park, and I grew up in Menlo Park, and I'm doing everything that I can to continue living here. I'm a teacher, and I don't take the label lightly. Teaching is my calling. It is my honor and my pleasure to be integrally involved in the learning, growth, and development of kindergarten students. I can't imagine having any other career. Unfortunately, teaching is not the kind of job that provides a salary that allows one to purchase a home in Menlo Park. Below market rate housing is the only option. This development would be life-changing for someone like me. We contribute to Menlo Park's vitality and value. The city can't continue to prosper without teachers, nurses, librarians, caretakers, and other people who make less than $100,000 a year. Please approve the project. Thank you for taking my opinion into account.
Thank you, Ms. Leap. Are there any other speakers this evening? Okay, so we can go ahead and close the public hearing by acclamation. Everyone in agreement? Yes? Public hearing is closed by acclamation. Council discussion. Anyone have, so now we can go ahead and move to comments and questions. Anyone have any comments or questions? No comments or questions. Can I have a motion?
All right, I'll jump in if nobody else will.
Councilmember Nash.
Huh?
Sorry, Councilmember Carlton. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
I know we went through this a long time ago when I was first elected, and I don't remember exactly how it works, so I just want some clarification. When we have a BMR unit that is sold, what are the restrictions on that person? I remember someone bought a BMR unit from the city, and then they got into trouble, and so can you go through that for us and remind me of...
Absolutely, I'm happy
Thank you.
to. So this is a BMR unit for moderate income, and so it is deed restricted. So when the price of the unit is set so that it is affordable to the smallest household size that would qualify for moderate income for the size of unit. So I believe for a one-bedroom, this is a one-bedroom unit, and so it would be a one-person household. One or two people, but the income level is based on a single person, not a two-person income. What's that?
No, that's not true.
They have to qualify income-wise, but the price is set based on the income of a single person, not two people. The price of the unit. The initial purchase price is two people. So the price of the unit is set under our BMR ordinance, and I believe, and Rhonda's not here. So anyway, the BMR guidelines set what the price is, but it is set for someone moderate income, and it's set on the size of the unit and the household size and the income for that household size. Whatever the size of the household that moves in, they have to be a moderate income household. Once that price is set, then there's a deed restriction, and it can only be sold to someone, again, from our BMR list, with the same deed restriction. The seller is entitled to an incremental increase, which is based on a percentage of the CPI increase over the period of time they hold it. That's the only increased equity other than paying down their loan that they get out of that home ownership. But they can live there as long as they survive, and then it has to be sold within the program. And so it goes back into our program to be sold to the person that they go down the list and decide on the next person who can afford to buy it or is interested in buying it and qualifies for a moderate income unit of that size. And it stays in the program. It's a deed restriction for 55 years, and it resets every time the unit turns over.
So if they own it for 10 years and it gets sold, it's 55 years
from the next sale. Correct.
Okay, so it could last forever.
In theory, that's the idea. That's the concept.
And they're not allowed to get equity loans on it, and
they cannot exceed the. There's a permitted level. They can't exceed the purchase
level.
Or repurchase price for the unit.
Right, and that's where the previous person got in trouble.
Yes. So what has happened is in the program is the title companies have gotten better, but we've also incorporated some new provisions to put in a deed of trust to also protect it. Deeds of trust are more typically picked up by title companies. Every once in a while, they don't pick up the affordable housing deed restriction, and so that's what happened on a refinance. As a title company didn't pick up that there was this affordable restriction. There also happened to be a problem with the legal description in that document, which is part of why it may not have been picked up. But knock on wood, we've been in pretty good shape since then.
Okay. That answers that. Thank you very much for that. I wanted to make sure that I remembered all those details that protect the property. The only other problem I have with this is the parking, and that's the elephant in the room with this. And I am always paranoid about unintended consequences and want to make sure that we protect the people in the neighborhood so that they're not unduly impacted by this, such that we need to make sure that when people rent and or buy these properties, it is made clear to them up front how many parking spaces, so that they can't rent the place and then say, oh, I didn't know there was one parking space. Oh, woe is me. we need to make sure that that's a legal requirement, to make sure that they are aware of that and they agree to that when they purchase the house. I saw one of the other recommendations was to prevent or limit how much street parking, so that they can't just then rent out street parking. Although, to be honest with you, it's pretty prohibitively expensive to do for that, and there are only so many days of the year that you can do that. I'm wary of saying absolutely you can't, but I would be supportive of limiting that because I have a lot of concerns. We always say, oh, well, in the future people won't own cars, young people don't own cars, but the average age at Facebook is like 28, and they have a terrible parking problem. People are buying cars, and they will do for the next few decades at least. And I want to make sure that we are very, very thoughtful in how we deal with the parking issue.
Thank you. Councilmember Combs.
Yeah, thanks. I was wondering if staff could walk me through a little bit of this street parking issue. And so the idea is that future purchasers or owners of these units won't be allowed to get like a yearly parking pass for overnight parking. Is that allowed by units or other buildings on the street?
So our overnight ordinance, parking ordinance, provides that buildings that were built before the adoption of the overnight parking restriction that did not have 2 parking spaces per unit could obtain annual or yearly permits so that they had 2 parking spaces per unit. But that does not apply to a project that is specifically applying for a waiver of the on-site parking requirement. So the idea is that it would be made clear in the recorded CC&Rs so that they understand that they cannot obtain the annual parking permits do not apply to this property. So people can't be surprised later and say, well, I didn't know when I bought this unit that I only had the ability for 1 parking space and I couldn't park on the street overnight. As one of the standard provisions that we require be included in CC&Rs for projects in Menlo Park is a notification in the CC&Rs, an acknowledgement that Menlo Park does not allow overnight street parking. But this wanted to specifically, a question was raised as to whether or not, because the city was approving a project with less than 2 parking spaces per unit, could they apply for the annual permit? And the answer is no under our current ordinance, and we wanted to make it clear in the CC&Rs. I periodically have people contact me that said, well, the code says this, and therefore I should be able to get a permit. And the answer is no, actually the code doesn't say that, and you can't get a permit. And so we want to make it clear in the CC&Rs at the time they're buying the unit that that's the restriction.
And so, and because I haven't gone through this process myself, if you could walk me through a little bit of the logistics. So does the city keep a list of all of the addresses that are allowed to?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, we have a historical list, and so there are properties on Roble, Live Oak, Fremont, Arbor. There are a couple of properties on Florence. There are various different streets with the older units that were typically built in the 40s or earlier that may have been renovated since then that are grandfathered and have that ability.
Okay, thanks.
All right, do we have a motion? Councilmember Nash has moved, and I'm assuming that motion is per the Planning Commission recommendations. We have a second from Vice Mayor Taylor. Let's go ahead and vote.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. We're going to go ahead and move on now to, actually, we're going to go ahead and take a little 5-minute break. Our next item this evening on the agenda is item I2, review the Heritage Tree Task Force recommendations and direct staff to prepare necessary amendments to the Heritage Tree Ordinance. Our Sustainability Manager, Rebecca Lucky, will make the presentation. Ms. Lucky.
Thank you, Mayor Mueller, council members. Good evening. So before I start, I just want to acknowledge all of the work that's gone into this and all of the staff, internally, external support that we've received, and also the community member support we've received in order to accomplish the Heritage Tree Ordinance update recommendations that are before you tonight. So internally from staff, everything ranged from having the city arborist to community development involved. We also hired Hort Science. Daria Barar is here behind me, who conducted the policy analysis report that I'll be talking about later. And we also had Debbie Schrader from Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center that helped guide the task force meetings and facilitating discussion. And on the community side, the city council appointed a task force, and it was a very diverse task force of tree enthusiasts to development community members that were interested in this topic. And so Councilmember Drew Combs is the chair of the task force, and Sally Cole is the vice chair of the task force. And we also had just some other members that have participated in city commissions, former EQ Environmental Quality Commissioner Scott Marshall, and we also had Catherine Martineau, the executive director of Canopy. So again, a wide range of individuals. Also past permit applicants or appellants have participated in the task force as well. So they had intimate knowledge of the inner workings of how the Heritage Tree Ordinance works. So a bit about the background. The purpose of the Heritage Tree Ordinance is to preserve trees by regulating their removal on private property. This is really implemented by requiring a permit every time a tree of a certain size is removed. And it's also required for pruning more than 25% of a tree's canopy. And the way it works is a permit application comes in, the city arborist reviews a permit applicant's arborist report and makes a determination of whether a tree can be removed on certain criteria, decision-making criteria. And currently in the ordinance, there are 8 decision-making criteria for allowing the removal of a tree. The ordinance also allows for appeals to be made of the city arborist permit decision, and it also includes penalties for violations of the ordinance. The ordinance, just a fun fact, was adopted in 1979. And it's been revised about 5 times, with the latest revision occurring in 2006. Why an update? So over the last several years, concerns have been raised regarding appeals related to development, unpermitted removals, and inadequate code enforcement. And this has come from community members. This has been talked about at length with the Environmental Quality Commission since I've been employed here in 2010, and also from council members, both present council members and past council members. So as I mentioned, the Environmental Quality Commission has been very interested in this topic since 2012. They submitted recommendations to the City Council to consider. And it's been a City Council work plan item in 2017, 2018, and currently in 2019. It's priority number 4 for completion. The task force purpose and experience. So as I mentioned, the task force was appointed by the City Council, and they started up in August of 2018. Since then, there's been 10 open public meetings between August and June of 2019. And this was intended to be a collaborative community engagement process. So the purpose of the task force was really to work with staff throughout the entire process and the policy analysis to determine which recommendations would work for the update. And early on, the task force made a group agreement that any final recommendations that would go before council would be decided by a supermajority vote, which is a 2/3 vote. So they really worked hard to make sure that they achieved consensus on a lot of issues. And as I mentioned before, the group was very diverse, and that was challenging. So in many of the meetings, they were long. The group had to work together in order to reach consensus or concede in some cases or compromise. And so based on the feedback we got from Peninsula Conflict Resolution, the group did very well. And the fact is that they also were able to deliver a recommendation on time to City Council. So this was their deadline that they were given, and they did deliver 16 recommendations to you tonight. The only area where staff and the task force recommendations differ is in the appeals hearing body. So in this area, we need further direction from council on where to go. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So when the task force was formed, City Council provided some objectives for completing this update. And really, it was the desired outcome is to ensure that a significant and thriving population of large, healthy trees are in Menlo Park for public enjoyment and environmental sustainability, while also balancing property rights and values and implementation efficiency. And to explore options really based on evidence, best practices in other communities, getting data collected that shows that this option will work. So the next part I'll talk about is the policy analysis. And it was really divided into two phases. Phase 1 was conducted between August of 2018 to February of 2019. And in that phase, we collected a lot of the permit data that we had on file over the last 3 years. And we also surveyed past permit applicants and appellants to get their feedback on what their experience was, what the challenges were, where they think there could be improvement. And based on all of that data, what really emerged, and as I mentioned before, there was a concern about development-related appeals, but what we found was that really the decision-making criteria for deciding whether a tree could be removed or not was ambiguous and really lacked clarity, which led to conflicts between the applicants, appellants, and city staff. So again, we collected best practices from other communities, and the task force in this stage, so what was provided was, here's all the best practices. Tell us, staff, what you would like us to explore deeper. What are 1 to 5 options that you think would work in Menlo Park that you would like us to take a deeper dive into? And that gets us into phase 2, which started to occur in December of 2018 through April of 2019. And in that phase, we also interviewed the communities that had, quote unquote, these best practices. So we really wanted to find out, yes, it looks like a great practice on the books, but is it really working? And if you can improve it, what would you do? And we also evaluated for each option the benefits, risk, the implementation logistics. So how much staff time would it take? Would it create more time and cost more to the permit applicant? Or would there be savings or costs associated with that? And one of the other steps was selecting criteria for figuring out what the preferred options were. And this really came from the task force because, as I mentioned again, there was a lot of diverse groups. And so this exercise really honed in on what's really important to you for a preferred option or a recommendation to come before council. And the task force selected 3 criteria. The first one was clarity. So does this option increase the clarity of the ordinance so that there is more certainty about when a tree can be removed or what needs to happen or what data is needed for a tree to be removed? And that was weighted by the task force at 20%. The next criteria was to increase or maintain the tree canopy, and that was weighted higher at 60%. So looked at options. So if the option was going to decrease canopy or not maintain canopy, then it was never going to be a preferred option, essentially. And then the third criteria was improve effectiveness of the ordinance. So would it improve enforcement? Would it require additional resources? Would this option be able to somehow make sure that the intent and purpose of the ordinance was implemented? So based on the data collection, the evidence gathering, and applying the criteria, it resulted in a Heritage Tree Ordinance Policy Analysis Report that was conducted by Hort Science. And all in all, 26 options were explored, and of those, 16 really emerged as preferred options using the criteria I mentioned: clarity, increases canopy or maintains it, and improves effectiveness. And so I'll go briefly over kind of what those recommendations are. So the first one is to modify the intent and purpose of the ordinance, and that was drafted by the Heritage Tree Task Force, and it's really to modernize, to reflect the greater value of trees to a community. And then the second area was the definition of the heritage tree. So it remains relatively the same as status quo. There's only a minor change to how trees with multi-stems are measured. and evaluated because it was very problematic the way it was currently written. For decision-making criteria, this was probably the most significant area of change compared to our current ordinance. And again, that goes back to trying to really address the problem of making sure it's clear and that permit applicants or property owners know what's expected when they're thinking about removing a tree. So it provides the greater clarity of what factors the city arborist will consider when making a decision about a tree removal. It also applies a lot of arboricultural industry standards to define the thresholds for removal, and it requires evidence for development-related tree removals on alternative designs. What's the cost of these alternative designs so that we get that up front rather than trying to ask the applicant for it. For appeals, the changes include limiting the ability to appeal when the tree risk rating is determined to be moderate or high, and there's no feasible option to lower the risk. And this is really just reducing the risk and liability to the city, because if a tree is high risk, you want to remove that as soon as possible. And then there are specific standards related to filing appeals for increased efficiency and offering conflict or mediation for community member appeals before a formal appeal is processed, and changing the appeals process for tree removals related to planning commission approvals. And so this addresses the problem of appeals occurring after the Planning Commission has already approved of a project. So the appeal period would occur before the Planning Commission approves of a project. Another recommendation is to require mitigation and tree replacements. And this would be put into two separate buckets, one for development-related removals and one for non-development-related removals. For development-related removals, the requirement would be that if a tree is removed, because particularly it's a healthy tree, that you're losing the value of that tree, that you would have to replace the monetary value of that tree based on industry standards. And in the staff report, it includes how that would be measured. So, for example, if a tree was valued at $5,000 and it's related to a development, it's a healthy tree, the permit applicant would be required to replace $5,000 worth of trees. It could be big trees, smaller trees. If their site is constrained, then they would try to plant as much as they can. And then whatever they can't plant, you would take the difference, and that would go into the city's existing tree fund to plant more trees or to help implement the ordinance effectively. So that's how that would work. And it also really provides an incentive for high-value trees to be preserved. So it starts to leverage, if this tree is worth $50,000, you might want to redesign around it. You might want to do different things to make sure you don't have to pay that cost. Other cities do use this practice as well. So for non-development related removals, the requirement would be using a matrix. That's similar to what we do now, but it would be more expanded. Based on the diameter of the tree, you'd maybe have to plant more trees. So, if it's a 30-inch tree, you might have to plant 3 trees instead of 2. And the city arborist would provide some guidance, and that would be provided online for permit applicants to understand. The next recommendation is expanding the use of the tree fund. So we currently do have a tree fund, but violations are usually directed to the general fund. So the task forces and staff is recommending that those funds be redirected to the tree fund, again, to help planting, to help implement the heritage tree ordinance. The next recommendation is enforcement of replacement trees. So this has been talked about in the community quite a bit. Are replacement trees inspected? How do we know that they're there once a permit applicant or a tree has been removed? And so what the recommendation is to require 2 inspections, one to confirm that the tree has been planted, and then another one to come back 2 years later to make sure the tree is thriving. For violations, the recommendation is to increase violations from $5,000 to $10,000, and in addition, assess punitive or administrative penalties. There's also a recommendation to remove the building moratorium. We've never used that in the past, and it's a challenging penalty to assess. And then the other recommendation is for notification requirements. So the recommendation is to follow what community development currently does for notifying the community of developments occurring in the vicinity of a neighborhood. So that would be consistent with current practices, and to also have open access of all heritage tree removal applications, permits, and appeals, whether it be online or some way where residents or any community member can subscribe and see what is going on with heritage trees in the community. So the appeals hearing body, that's the area where we need direction from City Council, and where, again, the staff and the task force didn't come to an agreement. And so I'll go through firstly what the policy analysis recommended as the preferred option based on the criteria used, which was to establish a heritage tree board made up of community members that have expertise in development or arboricultural practices. When this was brought to the task force, there was concern that that the task force still wanted to have a community of peers making decisions on appeals and not necessarily experts counteracting city staff who are already considered experts in making decisions. And so what was recommended as a result was that a new board be composed of existing commission members that would meet and make decisions on appeals as needed. So just an example, the chairs of existing commissions like the Library Commission or the Parks and Recreation Commission would meet when there was a heritage tree appeal and make a decision on it. And this was to alleviate some concerns expressed by the Environmental Quality Commission, who currently hear appeals, that sometimes it makes it difficult to complete the work that is a priority for them, like the Climate Action Plan, because appeals can take an entire meeting. Particularly this year, we've experienced a lot more than usual. We don't see appeals quite often, but every now and then, it seems like every 5 years, we do seem to see them come along and in lump sums in some years. The most we've ever had is 4 in a year. And so the staff's recommendation to kind of compromise between both of the analysis and the task force is to really maintain the status quo of using the EQC and perhaps adding some language that allows flexibility in the future to appoint another city council body. And really the rationale for that is that it can be very challenging administrative-wise to organize meetings outside of the existing commission meetings. And that's really the main point of that. So the costs, if all of the recommendations are approved. So based on the policy analysis, it was found that if all of these recommendations are approved, it would cost between $185,000 to $200,000 a year to implement the changes. And this is largely due to the inspection requirement. So doing the 2 inspections to confirm the tree is there and then coming back later on. And then just also having the open access and the greater transparency. These costs could be recovered through permit fees and a portion of what I talked about earlier with the proposed tree mitigation requirements for development. The general fund may be evaluated to cover the needed shortfall. So we would need to look further into this before we come back to council with a updated ordinance of how that would be funded. So community engagement that's occurred, 10 public meetings of the task force that were open to the public were held, and also individual task force members did engage, inform, and receive feedback from either their neighbors or other community members that they had talked to help inform their decisions. We've received over 20 public comments, either in writing or through the public meetings throughout this process. And again, we surveyed past permit applicants and appellants to try to engage and figure out what would improve the heritage tree ordinance. So the next steps for community engagement at this point is to bring this forward to the Planning Commission and the Environmental Quality Commission, because a lot of their work encompasses what the heritage tree ordinance embodies. And then to have 2 additional meetings of the task force in September and October. Those are already scheduled. So city council action, the recommendation before you tonight is to direct the city attorney to incorporate the recommendations from the task force and staff into a draft ordinance for public review, and maintain the Environmental Quality Commission as the hearing body for appeals or another city council appointed body to make decisions at a future time, and to limit
further community engagement to the Environmental Quality Commission, the Planning Commission, and the 2 additional meetings that will occur for the Heritage Tree Task Force in September and October. So if the council does approve these recommendations, staff would return to council in October with an updated ordinance for adoption and prepare to include the additional costs in the next fiscal year's budget and develop an implementation education plan. So based on all the changes, it'll take some time to get things up and running. And so the likelihood of implementation would occur sometime around July 1st or July 1st, 2020. And this concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. How many trees actually fall under this ordinance every year?
So on average, about 700 tree removal permits are approved every year.
Okay. Do you have questions before we take
I'm just
Councilmember
wondering
Nash?
how many of those are residential and versus non-residential for the 700 trees?
We don't have the data broken down in that format, but we have broken it down to development-related tree removals versus non-development, and about 13% is development-related removals, and the rest are because the trees in poor health has reached the end of its life and needs to be removed.
Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and take public comment this time. Our first public speaker is Peter Edmonds. Mr. Edmonds.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Councillors. I am Peter Edmonds, a resident of Menlo Park, District 3. I'm aware that Ms. Lucky is a very experienced presenter and she's a hard act to follow, but there are some aspects of her report that I disagree with, and I summarized these in the email that I sent to you over the weekend. You received it last Saturday. Today, I would like to refer to that again, but this time in order of priority as I perceive them, as regards to the items there. I apologize for providing you with even more pages to read, and I know that I will not be able to get through all of my written material in this presentation. So, if I can get the first slide up, or the first part of the slide. This is, oh, I see, over there. And on your screens? All right. So first, I strongly disagree with the item that appears in the end of Table 1, called Violations, to remove the building moratorium penalty. Provided the city attorney does not advertise his advice against actually using this existing penalty, it seems to me that its presence serves a very valuable purpose of deterring developers from ignoring related regulations. So please consider direction to keep it. I think it's the strongest leverage you have to ensure compliance. Second, has the slide changed? Is it showing in the left column 2 equal? Well, apparently I'm not getting what I want. But these items all appear in the email that I sent to you on Saturday, but now I'm addressing them in a different order. My second priority is that I'm offended by the staff's request in the opening recommendations and background clauses to limit community engagement at any time or in any way that is not currently available to the general public and in particular to residents of Menlo Park. If the staff are state actors within the legal meaning of that term, which I understand this evening from the city attorney may well be the case, then such a limit would seem to be contrary to the 1st, 5th and 14th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution and also to the Pledge of Allegiance that you recited earlier this evening.
Mr. Edmonds.
In short, it seems an attempt to limit civil rights. So
thank you, sir.
That's as much as I can get in, and you have the rest to read at what is comically called your leisure.
Thank you so much, sir. We very much appreciate it. Our next speaker this evening is Steve Van Pelt.
Good evening, Council. I am Steve Van Pelt. I'm a resident of Menlo Park since '83. I attended one of the meetings, and I have to compliment the group of folks to get anything out of there. I felt things were at least contentious, and there was much opportunity, but they have produced a document. There are some things I want to bring up, and I think a lot of things are really directed towards the development issues, and for those of us that have private trees, some of these things perhaps need a little more adjustment. In the start of all this, there have been presentations by some consultants here that were talking about the lifetime or the life cycle of neighborhoods of trees, and to make sure that all the trees that are probably all planted at once and are all the same kind don't fail all at once. And I don't see any mention of that kind of a concept. And in my neighborhood, that would be very, very important. We saw the mention of the canopy counting for 60%, and they talk about maintaining and increasing canopy. And I think my arborist looks at this because he trims and trims and trims every year, and my canopy just gets bigger. During the meeting, Christian Bonner, the city arborist, stated something to the fact that a tree can be too large for a site, and that describes my tree and my site. Over the last 3 years, we've spent over $4,000 just to prune out the dead limbs. This is a gigantic Monterey pine in my backyard, right up against the PG&E power lines. Just the local power lines, not distribution. So I guess I need to apply for a permit and state that I really want to really start cutting back on the canopy, because it's not happening automatically now. And I think it's just because the way some things are worded. Also, the tree is diseased, but it's not near to the point of having to be removed. I was amazed at the price here that's in the report. It's from 2010, but for a Monterey pine of my size, it says $3,500 to $6,700. We'll realize that's not counting anything that I'm having to put in it every year just to keep it alive. And I think for private owners, that's something that really needs to be considered, and you should be encouraging us to do everything we can to keep the tree alive. And the statement in the presentation was talking about a quarter of the canopy. Actually, the wording I find in the report is a quarter of the branches. And I find these inconsistent, and it's hard for me to interpret exactly how much we are allowed to do without a permit. That's a problem for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, any other public comments? No, we're going to go ahead and bring it back up to the dais. Any questions for staff? All right, who wants to make a motion?
Oh, wait. Oh, I've got questions.
Okay, Council.
Sorry, I've got comments.
Comment. All right, comments. Comments for staff. Councilmember Nash.
Hi, thank you. I think the committee's done a wonderful job with the report. I do have a few comments, and that is on the decision-making criteria for tree removal. It says that the tree has died or condition of the tree poses a high extreme risk, but which makes sense to me. But later on, even further down, it says the tree risk cannot be reduced to low. What are the ratings of the tree risk?
My name is Daria Barar. I'm the person who prepared the analysis report.
Thank you.
Low, moderate, and high and extreme are the four categories for risk rating.
So was it intentional that a tree should, obviously if it's died, that's
A separate
one category,
issue.
it's a separate issue. But if a tree poses a high extreme risk, that it's expected to be reduced to a low risk?
There's cases where a high-risk tree may have an attachment, for example, that is separating, and if that can be pruned off, then it would be reduced to low.
Actually, can I interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah, of course.
What I'm really going around is, I thought that I believe the whole purpose is to get clarity, and it seems to me that if it said the tree risk cannot be reduced to less than high extreme risk, in other words, you're just trying to get it out of that high extreme risk category, rather than actually reducing it to a low category. Clarity-wise, I was confused by the fact that it says high extreme risk there, and then later on it said that you had to, in one case it says reduced to low risk as reported by the qualified tree risk assessor. In another, just the next one down, it says will not restore the tree to good health. And then on the appeal finding, it said that it has to be rated as moderate. It just sort of seems to jump around, so it seems like it lacks consistency, which therefore doesn't give it the clarity that it needs.
Thank you.
So we can look into that and clarify it
Just so
before we
that's-
bring it back. Yeah.
Thanks. Let's see. Going over to the weekend information, I love the fact that there's open access. I assume that means there will be a database where the information can actually be looked up. Fantastic. Thank you. So what is the enforcement, especially on the weekend, if someone looks up, you hear a chainsaw, you look up, there's nothing in the database, so presumably they have not taken out a permit. What does one do? Has that been covered?
That's going to be covered in the implementation phase. So as we develop an education implementation plan, we'll figure out which department or who will be responsible for that and how that's incorporated into the cost of implementation as well. As I mentioned, the $185,000 to $200,000 a year. Okay. So that's also to help with enforcement as well.
So don't worry about that now. You'll take care of it and bring it back?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. And is there any, let's see, have you thought about any sanctions against the tree companies?
Yes. So we are looking into, especially for permits that are required for development. So when someone's applying for a tree removal for development, that they would only be able to use a selected approved list of city arborists that could perform that report or analysis, because it is an issue that does come up. And we do that in other areas as well, like for construction and demolition. There's only certain facilities that permit applicants can go to recycle their construction and demolition debris. So we're looking to have an approved list of city arborists that permit applicants can use.
I'm actually thinking of when oftentimes on Nextdoor someone will be asking if there's any suggestions for an arborist to help with their tree. And it seems that if arborists were actually, if there was some penalty, if they're actually violating Menlo Park's tree ordinance, then that would actually go a long way to helping enforce, just because people would want to be able to get more business in Menlo Park. So
yes.
Yeah.
Just for clarity, though, are you talking about the arborist or the tree trimmer? You're talking about the trimming companies, right, when you talk about...
One in the, either way. Yes, the arborist or the person who is actually trimming the tree and who might cut down a tree, yes.
And we currently do that as a practice. So if it's a company that's violating and working in Menlo Park and they're operating in violation of the ordinance, then they do also get penalized.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic to actually have the follow through. Thank you. And are property owners, when they purchase property, we were just talking about how they heard about the parking ordinance at nighttime. Are they told about the heritage tree ordinance? Although I realize that when one purchases property, there's so much paperwork. I don't know.
So some real estate offices have various different disclosures that they adopt, but there's no requirement of that. I mean, almost every city and the county have heritage tree ordinances, so it's pretty normal that one would expect that there is an ordinance that people then look into, and they're all different.
Okay, but that's...
Yeah.
Okay. So has there been any discussion with that database, whether the database will be adequate to determine whether the ordinance is being effective or not? And could the council get some sort of annual update as to how it's working?
Yes, that can be part of the implementation plan. And currently, the city arborist reports to the Environmental Quality Commission twice a year on the effectiveness of the heritage, or basically the permit data that we're receiving. But in community development already, they're updating the entire permit system, so not just for heritage trees, but all permits can be viewed online. So that should really help streamline in getting accurate data so that we can make better policy decisions in the future.
Excellent. And then I guess my last comment would be, I actually like the idea that staff has recommended of the review process being with the EQC, just because it seems like there's more consistency there. I don't know what comments were on the task force, but it makes some sense rather than pulling different people in who may not have as much of the. Anyway, there's more consistency and background there. Thank you so much.
I believe Councilmember Carlton was next, and then Councilmember Combs.
I agree with my colleague, and just one further step of clarification. You learn as you go along with these things. I was looking at one of them that says that the tree removal permit can be granted if the decision maker is able to make one of the following, and it talks about the city arborist has determined that the tree is dying or has severe disease and is likely to die within a year. That seems fair enough. And before I even get into all this, I just want to thank all the people that have come to this meeting, that have done input into this process, which has been multi-year. Thank you to Councilmember Combs This has not been an easy thing. Thank you to the commissioners that I see here tonight. This was a big effort, and I'm really impressed with the thoroughness, and I think you guys have done a really good job. When we make these decisions, a few of the decisions we've made have scared me and haunted me. Although I think they're the right decisions, they still scare me and haunt me. One in particular was a tree that was so big it was almost a block long up, and there was some very serious questions on the health of this tree. And there were 4 arborists who all disagreed with one another, and it was a really difficult decision. But they felt like the tree still had about 10 years left, which only scared me because if somebody was like, at what variance? If someone was wrong, it could take out a bunch of houses if it fell. And as I say, I think we made the right decision there. But my question is, when we talk about a tree being likely to die within a year, the only factor I don't see in there is the impact of fail. If we're wrong, if a tree is over a certain height, if that tree falls and is of a certain impact, a year's not really making me comfortable. I'd want it a little bit further out. And I don't know if this was discussed. Am I making myself clear? That a year is great for your average tree, but some trees are so impactful if we're wrong. And a year is a guess, even with the best arborist. And I was wondering how you accounted for that, because I want to make sure that we're not painting ourselves into a corner if we have a tree that is dubious and is that size.
So there is a criteria for that speaks to the longevity of the tree. So if there's a question that the tree would fail within a certain period of time, greater than a year, but not greater than, say, 10 years or 5 years or what have you, that is something that the city arborist would be looking at as well.
I was just wondering if one of those factors is or could be the impact of failure.
So that is considered when you do a risk assessment.
Okay.
That is one of the things that is very looked at in great detail.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure that was in there. See, I think that Councilmember Nash covered some of my other points thoroughly. The gentleman's document that he showed us earlier, I also am kind of a grammatical nerd. Great book, Eat, Shoots, and Leaves, funniest book you'll ever read on grammar. Absolutely, we need to, of course, make some of the grammatical updates that he suggested. Let me just see if there's any other comments. Oh, the other comment on the $10,000 fine. It was brought up that $10,000 is punitive for your average homeowner, but maybe not for a large developer. And I agree. I don't know if it was discussed or not to have 2 tiers, like for a homeowner, one level, and for a developer, a percentage of the size of what the development is, or something that might be, because I feel like for your average homeowner, $10,000 is adequate. But was there a discussion about maybe a different fine for some of the very large developments?
So the $10,000 is actually it's either or. So it would either be the appraised value of the tree, which in most development situations we will have up front as a part of their application. So once we have the appraised value of the tree, that's what the fine would be for any damage or removal during the development process. So the $10,000 would really only be in a situation where there wasn't a development application on file and it was a weekend person coming in, cutting down a tree, and there wasn't any evidence left. So that's the circumstance where you would be paying the $10,000.
So I won't pick on any Menlo Park companies. I'll say, what if Google came over and knocked down a very large tree that was very beloved, that was worth $10,000 maybe? $10,000 is not going to be a big hit on Google. That's where I'm going with this. Is there a consideration of maybe something that would be felt a little bit more if a large company or a large developer were to do something?
So that's where the additional punitive or administrative penalties can, this is something that the task force did discuss at length of what else could be tacked on to the additional 10,000 and how egregious was the violation. And that would be something that would be determined by city council through a resolution. And so we're going to be working with the city attorney to define that. And so the task force wanted to really leave the amount up to the city council and provide a recommendation to you in the future on this within, by the time we bring
I know
up
we're
the
not done
update.
yet, that was just something that I was thinking about in terms of making sure that the protections were there.
Mm-hmm. We did receive quite a few public comments on that issue as well.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, so I wanted to thank Ms. Lucky for the presentation and for her leadership of the task force over more than a year. And I know I see at least one of my task force members in the audience. It was a long haul and a heavy lift, and we're not done completely yet, which I can appreciate. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out. I think you can, first of all, we know how both important trees are to our community and how contentious how they are protected can be, of which we saw recently in an agenda item before the council. As you sort of look through the suggested changes, I think things worth pointing out is at the core there wasn't much change in the definition of what a heritage tree is. Despite our very sort of diverse task force with very, very disparate opinions, I think we did coalesce around the idea of what we think a heritage tree should be, and the value of heritage trees to our community. And so what we were left with was sort of looking at what has been at times sort of confusing and contentious processes and what we can do to sort of lessen that confusion and contention, and again looking at sort of issues around notification, the possibility of a database, and also the appeals process, right? Sort of where do you fit the EQC, or do you create another body and insert that body in that process, or sort of all the things that we discussed, and a lot of the recommendations you see are about, again, bringing clarity to those things that surround the process by which we tell people how they can and cannot dispose of or treat trees on their property. Because at the core, we're talking about trees on private property, and so there's always that tension with private property rights. But all in all, I think where we landed at least at this moment in the process, which is not over, is a pretty it's something that I think us on the task force can be proud of, and certainly the staff can be proud of, even as there's some work to be done. I would weigh in. I know one of the things that the staff is seeking direction on is with regards to the sort of appeals body. I mean, one of the things I do like the idea of the EQC continuing to play a role, but one of the concerns has been that those issues around tree removal can be very contentious, and it's not quite in a lot of cases what EQC members signed on for when they applied to being on the commission. And then the other issue was, again, how it fits in the appeals process, especially as it relates to sort of development, where you might have a situation as we had where the Planning Commission has approved a development, and as part of it a tree removal, which then gets appealed to the EQC, and of course can also get appealed to council, and just sort of the confusion that comes in that process, which I think we address. I know we address, but then it goes back to that issue of who is, so if you come to some conclusion of where that body fits in the process, then the question is, like, what is the body? And again, like, I like the idea of something outside of the EQC, like I said, because of the concern that some commissioners have had about not necessarily wanting to be involved in those contentious process, but there are sort of just very base sort of logistical administrative issues that come into play when you have this when you have this body that meets on an as-needed basis. And so, you could have staff calling them up and they haven't met for like 3 or 4 months, and, someone's moved out of the area or is on vacation, and it can be, again, a very difficult process. So I think for me, I would land on again, sort of keeping the EQC. But then I think, like I said, I think we go a long way to addressing some of the contention that has arisen by making sure that they're, at least when it comes to development removals, that they are earlier in the process, and that there is early notification for those trees that are going to be removed as part of a development agreement.
Any other questions? Councilmember Nash.
On the number 5 of the decision-making for criteria for tree removal, I was wondering if you could explain a little bit of, I wasn't sure why, what the exposure to sun or wind or increasingly high temperatures, what that meant. Thank you.
So this is the longevity criteria I talked about earlier. And what we're trying to get at here is trees that, I know Menlo Park doesn't have recycled water currently. However, other municipalities on the peninsula do. And that is the direction that we're going, is to use recycled water for landscape plants. Certain landscape plants don't have good tolerance for high salinity levels, which recycled water has at this point, or the quality of the recycled water that we're receiving at this point isn't a good match for certain tree species. So those tree species die quickly, and what we're trying to do here is have a criteria that the city arborist would be able to look at that would cover that would allow him to be able to make decisions about the wind direction might be different in this one location, and it's affecting a heritage tree that is not necessarily well formed. Or I can think of an example of a situation where a tree failure may lead to exposure from a different wind direction than the tree may have grown accustomed, and that would make its failure more likely, if that makes sense.
I guess it does, but to me it really clouds the issue rather than what you were going for, which is the clarity. So perhaps, first of all, stating straight out that something about the longevity issue, anyway, making it more direct about what the approach is. And because that makes sense what you're saying. And I had no idea what was happening with this. And then my other question is, the tree is a member of a species that has been designated as invasive by the city. Mr. Van Pelt was talking about Monterey pines, which I know I don't know if they would be considered invasive, but I know that I believe that they're considered somewhat pests. Are there trees that do grow fast, anyway, are there some trees that would be able to be removed? And I guess I'll stop there.
Yeah, so there is an invasive pest list or plant list that is available. I can't remember the web address now, but it is mentioned, I believe, in the report. And that list would be the list of invasive tree species would be compiled with staff and probably with some assistance from arboricultural experts. And it would be a short list. There's not that many trees on that.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Taylor.
Thank you. I just have a quick question as far as the community engagement. Just looking at Mr. Peter Edmonds' comments about limiting, I guess, community engagement. If you could explain why you're recommending it.
Sure. So I think in having a conversation about it, it's looking at how many meetings we've already had, and the purpose of, again, the task force was to have representatives from the community really intimately participate in this process because it is very complex and it is very challenging. And unless you've been at all 10 meetings, you can kind of really understand how these conclusions or these recommendations came about. It's I think probably limiting is probably not the best choice of the words because, I mean, there still are opportunities where we can market the meetings for the EQC or the Planning Commission for members of the public to make comments or provide feedback on, and outreach that we can do. It's just, again, trying to weigh the work streams that other departments, so this involves the city attorney's office, sustainability, and public works. And there are, as you know, other priorities on the city council work plan as well. And so it's just a matter of balancing, how can we achieve other projects, and again, how much community engagement do you consider to be enough at this point, given all the meetings that have already occurred and the upcoming public meetings that will still occur before October, before we bring you a draft ordinance to adopt?
Thank you. I just have one last question. The recommendation, there was an email that we received by, I guess it's 4 of the Heritage Task Force committee members. So did you look at these recommendations and
Yes.
put them as a part of?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So I did read the letter, and it makes sense and agree, and I've talked to the task force members, and these can be addressed in the next upcoming 2 meetings that they have in September and October before it comes back to council.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I'm fine with it being at the EQC for now. I'm comfortable with it being there. I don't like the $185,000 to $200,000, and I've been thinking about that. The thing about this is, so when you said 700, that could be somewhere between 700 and 1,400 new tree plantings, right? My question, I have kind of an outside-the-box idea on this, because I think when we're looking at 185,000 to 200,000, that's people time driving out there, I'm assuming. Is that right? People are going, checking. But so I have kind of a crazy idea to throw out to my colleagues, and that's that we do a smart app competition to see if it's possible to go ahead and have notification to the individual who does the plantings at a specific time that they have to take a picture of the tree and some specific characteristics of it and send it in. If they don't, that results in someone having to go out, and they pay for that person to go out to inspect it. And then at another certain point in time, they'd have to do it again. But I want to see if there's a way that we can actually have an app developed to create technology to take care of this issue. And I think that it's perfect for us, like a smart city app competition. Are you guys interested in that? Yeah. That's fine. Well, yes.
Sorry. There is a section of the report that talks about using a web-based application for people who are planting replacement trees to update that information. That is included as a part of the $185,000. And as well, the 2 inspections, one would not be an in-person inspection. The second inspection is the in-person inspection. But you do need to get somebody out there in order to have a good sense that the tree is in the ground, or at least that's what the task force felt was really important. The app that exists would allow the city to add public trees as well as private trees. And there's the city of Palo Alto has, I think it's called Urban Forest Map in San Francisco. I think it goes by a different name in Palo Alto. Essentially, it's a web-based application that anyone can look at. Anyone can ask to make additions to. And the idea here is that the applicant would be required to add their tree to it. And the city of Menlo Park would not pay a huge amount to be able to get this application. There's an annual fee associated with it. And because it would be so few trees at the beginning that applicants would be adding, it would be a very low cost. The more trees you have on the app, the greater the sum of money, and it's not terribly expensive.
Yeah, I realize that's a mapping inventory app. I'm actually interested in doing an app challenge to have people try to create the inspection app. So there's been a lot of thought about trying to do this increasingly with zoning permits, having on checkoffs to have people actually take pictures and have that be identified like through an AI. This isn't that complicated. What we're talking about here, where you would have potentially an app created to take pictures, to see that the planning actually took place, to see that it took place, and then check again then later in time if someone recognized there was something. But I'd like to try to see if there's you can do an app challenge for free, basically, or you could have a small prize. But I'd like to see if there's a way that we can try to drop down the price of this. So I'd like to sort of put that in, and if nothing comes of it, fine. But I think it's ripe to try to seek that type of solution. And then, so those are my two comments. I think everyone else has pretty much covered this exhaustively. But I would like that included in it. Is someone interested in trying to construct the motion? No one looks like they're interested, so maybe...
I mean, my understanding would be to move the staff's recommendation as outlined on the first page of the report with whatever additional modifications you want to make.
Okay, so the question, and that would be mine too. There was a lot of comments up here. So if there's things that people want to throw into it again real quick, let's throw that in. Remember, this is a draft that's going to be constructed, so it will come back to us if everything is missed. So let's try to get the best summary we can.
I thought this was giving direction rather than a specific motion.
The staff needs to start actually preparing amendments for us to look at, so we are giving direction. I mean, any direction we give, there's going to need to be 3 people to agree with that direction to go into the amendment.
What do we say? The EQC, I think.
Well, I mean, the recommendations are outlined in the staff report.
Yeah.
Aside from some of the issues of grammar and additional clarity, we wouldn't need to actually sort of enumerate those in the motion, would we?
Those aren't the ones, no. So for those, we can just say those included. I was just saying anything extra. Anything extra that people want, speak now, or I guess we can add them when it comes back to us.
Right. So to be clear, what it would be is that the council would be authorizing, directing the city attorney to incorporate the Heritage Tree Task Force recommendations into a draft ordinance for public review, 1. 2, maintain the Environmental Quality Commission as the decision-making body for appeals with language that would allow the council to substitute. The ordinance language would include allowing the council to substitute another council-appointed body in the future if it desired to do so, so you don't have to amend the ordinance later. And 3, to direct staff to take this essentially use community engagement with the Planning Commission and EQC for community engagement. Of course, we would take whatever written communications and public comment that comes in, but essentially use those 2 bodies for the outreach and community engagement.
And I'm going to add the 4th, the investigation of the Smart City app. The
the investigation for the creation of the Smart City App Challenge for the inspection of tree plantings thereafter and reporting back. Councilmember Nash.
I just have one more, and that's I realized on the appeals based on proposed tree removal, where it said if appellants can identify concept ideas that can be explored by the city that align with the proposed removal criteria, I would love to see by the city struck so that it's not the city's responsibility to identify, to explore the ideas. I don't want to exclude the city from doing it, but I don't want it to be the city's responsibility to do that.
And to clarify, you were looking into and haven't completed the 2-tier fine that we discussed.
Councilmember Combs. Nope. Okay, I think we have the motion. Motion by Councilmember Carlton, seconded by Councilmember Combs. Let's go ahead and vote. Great. Thank you very much.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. A lot of good work, a lot of hard work in that one. Okay, let's go ahead and move on now to item I3, authorize staff to develop amendments to the 2019 California Building Standards Code to require new buildings be electrically heated and require solar production on new non-residential buildings and apply for a 10,000 REACH code grant. Our sustainability manager, again, Rebecca Leckie, and sustainability specialist Joanna Chen will make the presentation. Good evening again, Ms. Leckie.
Thank you. It's nice to spend an evening with the City Council. So Joanna Chen is our new sustainability specialist, so she'll be helping to present on this. She's really been the muscle behind gathering the data and looking at the different options and presenting to the EQC. So we'll be tag teaming throughout this presentation. So the background on this, again, just introducing that this has been a larger effort beyond sustainability. We've included the Community Development Department, the City Attorney's Office to help us look at different options of what could be possible in Menlo Park for adopting a REACH code. We've also received a lot of external support. They're here tonight. So from Peninsula Clean Energy, we have actually Peninsula Clean Energy's consultant, TRC. So Farhad is in the audience back here to answer any technical questions regarding the cost effectiveness of REACH code options. So he's been working with many different communities on this, on their various REACH codes and the differences and variances that each community is desiring. And Sven is also here. He's a Clean Energy Programs Manager at Peninsula Clean Energy. Oh, there he is. And can also answer questions regarding efficiencies of appliances. Is it a good resource? And also our Assistant Community Development Director, Chuck Andrews, is back there to answer any code questions. So you definitely have a lot of support here tonight. And we also have the Environmental Quality Commission Chair, Ryan Price, and she's happy to answer any questions that the EQC has been reviewing this over the last few months.
Great. So the REACH codes are related to the California Building Standard Codes, and these are known as code cycles. So these building codes get renewed every 3 years, and the new code cycles will be effective January 1st, 2020. And it's mandatory for all states to adopt, which creates an opportunity for communities to adopt local amendments, which is known as REACH codes, to address environmental goals such as reducing greenhouse gas emissions from the building sector. So local governments seeking to increase environmental standards typically amend parts related to the state Energy Code and the California Green Building Standard Codes, known as CalGreen. So exploring the REACH code options is part of the 2019 City Council Work Plan, and it was referred to the Environmental Quality Commission to explore its different options. Exploring the REACH codes were discussed over 3 public meetings, and we reviewed 4 different options before coming to a conclusion. So in the Environmental Quality Commission, unanimously recommend requiring new buildings to be electrically heated and a minimum amount of solar panels to be installed for non-residential buildings.
the analysis part of the REACH codes involved looking at electrification of buildings. So in the past, when Menlo Park has adopted REACH codes, which we have previously done, it was usually to increase energy efficiency requirements, but most cities and communities are looking at electrifying their buildings. And this is largely due to what's going on at the state level, what's happening regionally as far as the kinds of renewable energy that's offered to communities. And so just starting off with the state is requiring power providers, to achieve 100% greenhouse gas free electricity by 2045. And on top of that, they're also requiring that 40% of the greenhouse gas reductions come from the building sector. And this really aligns with the Climate Action Plan that was adopted by the City Council nearly a decade ago. And if you look on the right-hand side of this slide, this is our 2013 greenhouse gas inventory. Now, that doesn't include the emissions from Peninsula Clean Energy. So this is when everybody was on PG&E. And the blue and red shaded areas are the emissions that come from the building sector. So the blue is for residential, and the red is the commercial buildings' greenhouse gas emissions. So they do take a large portion of our pie chart. And then the other side, in case you can't see it, that's transportation, the purple shaded area. And recently, the mayor did sign a climate and sustainability resolution on Earth Day, and part of that resolution included a drive toward all electric for new buildings and a move away from natural gas. Because natural gas is a fossil fuel, it does create greenhouse gas emissions that contribute to climate change. And so some communities have more access to renewable power than others, and fortunately we are in an area where Peninsula Clean Energy was formed, and they are able, and Menlo Park residents and businesses are subscribed to this program or service, and as a result of that, 50% of the energy that's delivered to residents and businesses in Menlo Park are from clean and renewable sources. And residents and businesses have the option to even opt up higher to 100% renewable energy for 1 cent more. And on top of that, Peninsula Clean Energy has committed to producing 100% greenhouse gas-free energy by 2021, and that all energy that they provide will be from renewable sources by 2025. So PCE does not provide natural gas. Again, that's a contributor to climate change. It's a fossil fuel, creates greenhouse gas emissions. So this really means it puts Menlo Park at a prime opportunity to take advantage of the renewable energy that's available in the community, because electrifying buildings would result in almost no greenhouse gas emissions after 2025. And so it really does, when we look at development, we're trying not to increase emissions. And typically what happens in a community every time you're adding more development, that can increase the environmental impact. And so this would essentially keep us at the same level or not increase our emissions and ensure that we maintain our 27% greenhouse gas reduction goal by 2020, which is next year, and carrying forward. So the development forecast for Menlo Park, when we were evaluating options, is, do we need to adopt REACH codes this cycle? Are we going to potentially experience development that would require us to move forward more progressively? And so we looked at single-family homes or homes that were built over the last code cycle, and there were about 100 new homes built in the past code cycle. And from the planning queue of permits that are waiting for approval or have been submitted, we have 20 new buildings that include multifamily, office, retail, and hotel. And if these buildings use natural gas, that would essentially result in 213,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions over the life of the buildings. So the life of buildings typically range from 30 to 50 years. So their impact is long. And this would essentially increase our community greenhouse gas emissions by 1% to 2% a year. That may not seem like a lot, but when you're trying to address climate change at a local level, it does mean a lot, because getting those 1 or 2% do take quite a bit of effort. So the preferred option that the EQC and staff is recommending is to require that all new buildings be electrically heated, and that means the space area and the water that's used for a building needs to use electricity as its fuel source and not natural gas. So this would exclude cooking and fireplaces and other uses, because sometimes industrial uses still need natural gas for their manufacturing purposes. And this would also require that new non-residential buildings have on-site solar, and that would be based on the size of the new building. For example, if it's 10,000 square feet, a minimum of 3 kilowatt photovoltaic system would be required. And it's, again, the cost of solar is coming down. It helps create resilience for the grid itself. So there's a lot of good things that come about that. It's also very cost effective. And the reason why we are not recommending anything for residential is because that's already included in the state 2019 building codes. So that's already a requirement for new residential to have solar. So it just wasn't a requirement for non-residential.
So the REACH codes that we are proposing only applies to new construction, ground up. It does not apply to additions, remodels, and some of the tenant improvements. It is found to be cost effective, and it is achievable. It's simple for the permit applicants to understand. It is easy for the city to implement. And it also allows strong consumer preference to still use their natural gas cook stoves. And lastly, it guarantees significant greenhouse gas reductions. So this graph shows the natural gas consumption of the household appliances. So for space heating, it contributes 37%, whereas the water heating contributes 49% of the household natural gas consumption, which is why staff is recommending buildings to be electrically heated.
So we have a small demonstration for you to kind of conceptualize what the impact of a policy like this would have. So in front of you, you have 2 1-gallon containers. The gallon of container that's filled with black water would be the amount or the weight of greenhouse gas emissions, which is about 8.5 pounds, for taking a 50-gallon shower. Now, hopefully, you don't take a 50-gallon shower because it's about 50 minutes. But if you're a family of 4, you probably use about 50 gallons of water to take a shower. And so that would be the, again, carbon footprint, 8.5 pounds for taking a 50-gallon shower. So if your shower was now using a heat pump from renewable energy, then the weight would be a little bit less than a pound. So that's our second bottle here, as Joanna is showing. So it just, again, shows the weight of the impact and the differences. And this was provided to us by Environmental Quality Commissioner Tom Cabot, who used to work for Palo Alto's Utilities Department. And he's been really great at demonstrating do-it-yourself carbon footprints. I don't know if you were at the block party, but he also did the hamburger, of the weight of a hamburger versus a chicken burger versus a vegetarian burger. So we thank him. He couldn't be here tonight, but he helped us develop this demonstration. So Menlo Park's proposal is really a middle ground approach. Many cities are proposing a disincentive type regulation by providing building permit applicants with a choice. So you can either go all electric, or you would be required, if you want to use natural gas, to have higher and more expensive energy efficiency requirements. And cities have tried this in the past, and it hasn't really been that effective. And a recent example is Sonoma Clean Power was offering substantial rebates for new homes that were being built after the fires to go all electric. And of all the permit applicants, they only had 1/3% participation. And so not only for the all-electric, you were getting the savings over the life of the building and the upfront construction costs, they were giving on top of that extra money just to go all-electric, and they still were having trouble getting people to take on an all-electric building. And so that really, again, signals to us that consumer preference is stronger than cost savings or even additional funds.
And then there are a small number of cities that are considering all electric as an option, and those include Berkeley, Santa Rosa, Healdsburg, Petaluma, and Burlingame. And so Menlo Park, again, it's a requirement and somewhat of a disincentive. So what we're looking at is, as Joanna demonstrated, is that the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions using natural gas comes from water heating and space heating. So if we can tackle that, we're essentially getting a significant amount of greenhouse gas emissions. If consumers or property owners or building owners want to still use natural gas for cooking, they certainly can. They will just have to pay a premium for that, but they can still have their consumer preference rather than saying that you have to be all electric.
Great. For the next steps, so after tonight, staff will come back to City Council in August and September for the first and second ordinance reading. Then staff will submit an application to the California Energy Commission in October, and the final step would be staff to file with the Building Standards Commission in December in order for staff to adopt REACH codes by January 1st. 2020. So in summary, the EQC and staff recommendation is to authorize staff to develop amendments to the 2019 California Building Standard Code to require new buildings to be electrically heated and require solar production for new non-residential buildings, and to authorize the city manager to apply for a $10,000 PCE REACH code grant. And that concludes the presentation. Thank you for your time.
Just have a quick question. Why aren't we requiring, what was the reason why we weren't requiring all electric on non-residential buildings for like cooking? So for cafeterias on non-residential, say like we have a tech company that wants to build a cafeteria, a big cafeteria, why wouldn't we say it has to be all electric?
There's just a lot of debate still over. I think culturally, I don't know, it just doesn't seem that cooks are ready to make the transition. So, I mean, we've had long conversations about induction stoves and other, it's just, again, there just seems to be a strong consumer preference to cook with fire. So
I don't know. It's a lot of, yeah.
The UC system in all their new buildings is going 100% all electric.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. An induction stove, if you're in Europe, it's very common. In this country, they're not so much. People are much more acquainted with your conventional electric, which does not have any of the attributes of an induction stove in terms of its ability to turn on very fast, turn off very fast, and safety of being unable to essentially burn yourself on an induction stove. Those things just aren't commonly known here.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of education.
There's education, so we'll go ahead and bring people up for comments, but just at the outset, I'm seeing at least one of my colleagues saying the same thing. I'm not sold that we shouldn't be applying this to big non-residential all electric. So, any other questions, Councilmember Carlton?
I just have one clarification. Just for the sake of clarity, when you were talking about PCE, it's 90% greenhouse gas free. You kept saying 50 with the renewable, and I don't want that to be lost on people. It is 90% greenhouse gas free with the option of going to 100.
Okay. With that, we're going to go ahead and open, we're going to take public comment. So our first public speaker this evening is Joanna Falla.
Hi, I'm Joanna. I'm from Palo Alto, and I'm part of the environmental organization Menlo Spark. So here I go. I come to you as a member of Menlo Spark, but I mostly come to you as a member of Silicon Valley and someone who's concerned about our actions that we're taking against the current climate crisis. As I'm sure you're all aware, we're in the middle of a crisis. CO2 levels have reached the highest they've ever been in human history. Last year's record-setting wildfires in California were linked in part to increasing temperatures and prolonged dry periods. More than 1 million public school students were out of school due to these fires, including schools in San Mateo, Hillsborough, and Burlingame. California's major droughts, global temperature rises, warming oceans, and shrinking ice sheets will all have drastic effects at a local and global level. The report calls itself a moderate approach for what Menlo Park can do to alleviate the climate crisis. Your generations, my generation, and the generations that come after all of us don't have time for a moderate approach. We don't have a moderate crisis, and that's why I stand before you today. I want to take the time to highlight the importance of adopting REACH codes. They enable all-electric, carbon-free buildings that make our buildings safer, healthier, and more affordable, as well as help meet local climate action plan goals. It will also help defend the city against costly and uncertain supplies of natural gas and make Menlo Park a leader for cities throughout the U.S. This city is in a large building boom, and if these edifices continue to rely on natural gas, an estimated 212,876 tons of greenhouse gas emissions would result over the expected life of these buildings. Menlo Park has been at the forefront of eventual phase-out of natural gas across Silicon Valley. As of right now, more than 15 cities are working with Peninsula Clean Energy, Silicon Valley Clean Energy, and technical consultants to develop REACH codes in time to sync up with the new statewide Title 24 standards that go into effect January 1st, 2020. I commend Menlo Park's representative for Peninsula Clean Energy, Councilwoman Carlton, for all she has done to push the city forward, and I hope that she and the rest of the City Council will continue to show leadership and help bring Menlo Park to a greener future. I sincerely hope that Menlo Park will consider these REACH codes seriously, and I thank you for your time. And I have a fact sheet about the benefits of multifamily all-electric housing that I'll leave with you guys, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. Our next speaker this evening is Janet Walworth.
Good evening, everyone. Well, what she said is basically why I'm here. I am a grandmother, a mother, terrified of climate change, and I think we should do all we can do. We don't have to fight the fossil fuel industry to adopt these REACH codes. But let me say a few other ideas about this above and beyond climate change, as important as that is. One, it creates a lot of damage to the communities with extractive gas, compressors, pipelines, all that. Those go away. And then there's a lot of other advantages. One is that it's a lot safer not to have gas. The fires that were caused after the big earthquakes, half of them were caused by gases in homes. So it's dangerous to have them in homes, setting aside the climate change. Also, gas cooking creates kind of a smog-like atmosphere. It's not good for indoor pollution. A lot of kids suffer from asthma as climate change is getting worse, the air quality is getting worse. Electricity is cheaper for utility bills. It's cheaper in construction not to have gas. There's an estimated savings of $8,800. And I would also say the more consistent that the REACH codes can be, the easier it'll be for contractors to feel comfortable working with all the projects. So I say, let's wean ourselves from gas. And let me just mention that we were making great progress on commitments in many cities, and we appreciate it, and we appreciate that all the cities are working hard on trying to avoid the horrible consequences that we all fear so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ryan Price.
Good evening. So I'm the current chair of the Environmental Quality Commission here in Menlo Park, and I'm coming to speak on behalf of the Environmental Quality Commission just to relay kind of how we thought about this. So first, the EQC voted unanimously to support the staff recommended REACH code proposal that you've seen. And the reason we did is because, as many people have said, natural gas is a significant contributor to greenhouse gases. And as you saw in the different, studies that were shown, This proposal meets the three criteria that we thought were most important. First, a significant greenhouse gas reduction. So as you saw in the cost effectiveness studies, it shows that the electric option was 67% on average more efficient at reducing greenhouse gases, and that overall across all zones it was 40 to 50% more. The staff proposal also is a very clear and rather has an ease of implementation and efficacy that we thought was effective for Menlo Park. And lastly, given Rebecca's comments, we were concerned about the community acceptance, and we felt like this found a nice balance between community acceptance and greenhouse gas reduction. Why now? As many people have said, we believe that there is a climate crisis and we should take action. There are over 50 cities working on adopting some type of REACH code, and the development that's coming to Menlo Park or that's currently slated is significant, and as many people had mentioned, the total greenhouse gases, if we chose not to do anything over the life of the buildings, would be over 200,000 tons. So in closing, we as the EQC strongly recommend that the City Council authorizes the staff recommended REACH code implementation, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker this evening is Sven Thiessen. Sven, I'm going to need you to come to the mic, just so people can hear you at home.
In the interest of time, Peninsula Clean Energy says thank you to the staff and the good work they have done, and we are in support of the work you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Nora Midwinter.
Hi, I'm Nova Midwinter. I'm 15 and I go to Cupertino High School. And I'd just like to express my personal support for these REACH codes and my real concern for the ongoing climate crisis. You see, climate change, and I know you guys are all doing stuff about this, and I really appreciate and commend that, but it seems like it's not that big a deal right now, and it's been ignored for a very long time, and just now we're starting to see small symptoms of what a real problem it is. But that's just going to start getting worse a lot faster. It causes natural disasters. It is melting ice caps and making California specifically a lot hotter, which causes fires, which makes the air unsafe to breathe. Actually, for a week in my district, we couldn't go outside without wearing masks because the air was unsafe because of a forest fire, which was definitely impacted by climate change. We still had to go to school, so it's not super on record, but PE was canceled. I had to wear a mask outside. We couldn't spend our breaks outdoors, and my friends with asthma were in serious danger. So, it'll get worse. So on behalf of my generation, your generation, every generation after, I implore you to fight for laws and legislations that make our planet safer in the future, because this has a real lasting impact on whether or not my kids will be able to live good lives and go outside without wearing masks and do the things they want to do, and whether or not the human race has a future. So thank you so much for what you're doing right now, and I really hope you'll continue to fight for stopping climate change and helping the world progress. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker this evening is Moshe Helitz. Sorry, is it Moshe? It's Mosh? Moshe. Well, it's an education for me, so thank you.
Yeah, it's okay to mess up my name. Hello, I'm Moshe Helitz. I'm actually a new resident of this county. But I'm currently living in Palo Alto in the Evergreen neighborhood. And I'm really excited that you guys are considering this new legislation that would allow, that would require buildings to be built with electricity as the sole way of heating things and creating, heating up water and all these other things that we use gas in homes typically for. It's also, as I heard previously, between you and a discussion with these ladies over here, you guys were talking about how it's important for large non-residential construction people who are building to also be subject to these kinds of requirements. And I think it's especially important for these kinds of non-residential entities to be subject to this because, I mean, if you look at it, these are the guys that can easily afford it. And also, these are the guys that really are producing a lot on a large scale. So it's important to also not exempt non-residential entities from this type of legislation. And as everyone has previously said, the production of carbon dioxide and other types of emissions will really impact my generation, especially I'm only 18 years old. So I think it's really important that we take action and quickly, given the what has been going on at higher levels of government right now, due to a lack of will to act on climate change. So yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And it's nice to be in Palo Alto. So yeah.
Glad you're enjoying it. All right. So, and our last speaker this evening is John Tarleton.
Mayor Mueller, members of the council, thanks very much for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. My firm is a committed partner to the city in environmental matters. We, as many of you know, have been in the vanguard in some instances in getting our buildings more efficient, et cetera, reducing water consumption. We have a concern in the proposed legislation, and that is that there is not currently technology available to us to heat life science laboratories and production facilities reliably with electricity. And so we'd like to ask that staff work with us to come up with some sort of way that we can move forward together and adopt technology as it becomes available, but at the moment it's not currently available. Life science laboratories in particular have unique airflow needs that, as I say, are not currently heatable with electricity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bringing it back up to the dais, we are done now with questions. With the public comment. Who has any questions for professional staff? Does anyone have any questions for professional staff? Okay, I'll ask professional staff. On the life sciences question, was that something that came up during the process?
So we have had conversations about all electric for life sciences. I just, again, confirmed with Chuck Andrews, our building official, on that. And so if we were, what's suggested, it sounds like, to have an all electric for non-residential, we would really have to look at what that would mean for life sciences and an open, yes, talking to Mr. Tarleton, on how he would be impacted or how his businesses would be impacted.
So that's not my understanding. My understanding is it's not an issue for life sciences, the all-electric issue, but rather just the REACH codes as it applies to the life sciences, because he was talking about water and heat as opposed to the cooking and things like that we were just talking about. So is there some issue with life sciences buildings that even if we don't start talking about applying all electric, which we're interested in doing, that we could go ahead and that there would be an issue?
So the cost effectiveness study that TRC has conducted, it does not cover life sciences. And the reason why we're doing the cost effectiveness study is because we do have to submit to the California Energy Commission anytime we go above and beyond the state standards. And they provide certain models of building type prototypes like hotels, high-rise multifamily. Of course, it's, again, prototypes. So the analysis hasn't looked at life sciences. So we would need to, again, have a meeting with Mr. Tarleton on how that would impact life science. So it's not included. We haven't had that analyzed yet. No.
So should we take them out of whatever we do tonight?
We could, or we could analyze it and bring it back to you of how that would look.
All right, let's go ahead and bring that back. In after. Do you guys agree we should bring that back? Or
I do, but with all respect to Mr. Charlton, he's not the sole person. We also, make sure that you look at life sciences, obviously, with a broad view of Charlton and maybe CS Bio and some of the others, just to make sure that we have a solid look at that area.
Councilmember Nash.
I've had a preliminary conversation with Tom Kabat about this, and he was quite hopeful that life sciences, it would work. So I would recommend definitely having the conversation, but possibly including Tom, or perhaps you have another person. But basically, it sounded hopeful when I spoke with him a couple months ago about it.
All right, so let's imagine life sciences on the side, it's its own bucket. All right, that's out. So for now, there's going to be meet and confer, that's going to be worked out. Right, well, let's talk about the rest of non-residential. Why, so I'm still stuck on why for the rest of non-residential, we aren't talking about applying this to cooking. I kind of get, as everyone was talking, I kind of get how there may be industrial use that you need a flame for. So if you need a flame, you need a flame. But why are we, for some sort of manufacturing process, they might need it. But why wouldn't we be pushing all electric tonight for cooking in non-residential buildings, new non-residential?
You certainly can. I mean, that's an option that's available.
Councilmember Combs.
Well, I think isn't the response that in America culturally cooks like to prepare food with natural gas, right? Whether it's in a commercial setting or whether it's at their home. So we're not sort of making the requirement for all residential in the same way that we would get incredible blowback. My wife would be one of them. Because of this preference. And so I think that, and I'm not saying that means that we shouldn't go there and put in place the all-electric requirement, but I think that, again, what staff has come out with is I think in response to that concern, that even cooks in a commercial setting prefer natural gas.
Councilmember Carlton.
I think it's actually a good idea. I'm trying to put something forward that has a significant impact, but takes Councilmember Combs' consideration as well. And when we looked at the pie chart, a huge amount of that was heating. So that being true, as a first step, I would propose that we have everything but cooking for the non-residential. At least non-residential should have everything else. I don't know if that's
Can we bring that slide back up? The slide of what's included.
And I'm not saying I'm not for one or the other. I'm just throwing it up there for discussion.
So if we can go ahead and take a look at what this includes. There was a slide that said what it included.
Because to be honest with you, I'm not an expert on what industrial stoves are available to restaurants right now. I'm not an expert on that.
You just went past it. So there was one, not this one, but go past a couple, go back one more, and right here. Requires new buildings to be electrically heated, excludes cooking fireplaces and other uses. And the other uses you said was, I'm assuming like the manufacturer or industrial use where it requires a flame. And so what I was trying to figure out and looking at this is why in a non-residential building why we would exclude cooking in fireplaces. And I get that there's a preference, but guess what? Some people have a preference that they actually like to use gas to heat their water. You know, I mean, I just the amount of people that are in a non-residential setting that are going to be using flame to cook is a lot, and I know it's not what the cook might not enjoy it in that sort of cafeteria type environment, but it's a huge chunk we get to cut out there. So
I agree. I just wanted to make sure that, again, just making sure that we cover unintended consequences, that we're not somehow making it hugely difficult for restaurants to come into our town. Because as I say, I don't know, maybe Councilmember Combs does via his wife, or maybe if the University of California, or who was it? There was a large, or is it Berkeley, that's doing all electric? As long as we know that there's a good solid option for people with restaurants or whatever, that it's not causing undue burden on them to be able to cook with electric. I just want to make sure.
Right. So why don't we can exclude the for-profit restaurant open to the public. But again, for the non-residential commercial use, I think I don't want to exclude cooking.
Well, that's fine. As I say, I just bring it up just because I don't want to. I don't know for a fact that we're not causing harm to restaurants, and okay. I could be. I don't know either way. I was just throwing that up there for conversation.
Yes, Sven.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, that answers my question then. Then I have no trouble supporting that. I just want to make sure.
Okay. French Laundry's pretty high.
French Laundry standard.
All right. Well.
No, wait. Is it prohibitively expensive?
The induction stove or French Laundry menu?
No, I know the French Laundry menu. Or I've heard. I haven't been there.
Was it just as someone who's using an induction stove for the last 8 years with children? My wife, the cook, would equally argue, and the physician would argue extremely for induction stoves over natural gas because of the safety of contact with a 2,000-degree piece of metal on the gas stove side, with the air quality triggered by the combustion of natural gas in a tight space in the home, and that the benefits of being able to wipe down a ceramic top instantaneously after making a spill, and the control of being able to immediately turn the heat up or turn the heat down has convinced her over and over again that the induction is far superior than the natural gas stove in the home.
Okay.
Or in the restaurant, you mean?
Or in the restaurant.
Yeah.
So on the new restaurant, what I like to do, because I think in fairness, we haven't had outreach on that to those stakeholders. So what I like to do is put that as a year two comeback. But I do want to include the non-residential commercial, commercial for the as a non-exclusion. So, does that make sense? Mr. Combs?
Just
Councilmember Combs.
What are some specific examples, just so I can get some, or like what like a hotel restaurant, right? So would they come under?
That's open to the public.
Okay. So what's an example of
a tech company cafeteria?
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you looking for a motion at this point?
Yeah, let's make a motion.
I'll
Let's
move.
get this done.
So moved.
All right, can we have a second? All right, and you guys have clear understanding what the motion was? Yes? Okay. Go ahead and bring it back, and it's going to be coming back to us anyway on a first reading, so let's go ahead and all vote. And that's with the life sciences meet and confer process that was included.
The motion passes unanimously.
Great, excellent. All right.
Oh, a little late. How will that impact schools, like the old Bunsen burners?
I think I'm perfectly fine with it applying to this. Well, for the school, for the schools, that would be like we can count that as like that would be like the industrial flame use, right? It doesn't, that's the industrial flame use. So.
Okay.
Right, it's only new ones. It's
Okay,
new
that's
construction.
just
right.
making sure. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go on to, oh man, can I read that right? I-4, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. It's 10:30, guys. We have a couple more things to we'll keep going. Yep, check in. All right. Approve the terms of a successor agreement between the City of Menlo Park and the Menlo Park Police Sergeants Association and amend the citywide salary schedule effective July 21st, 2019. We have Administrative Services Director Alenka Diaz who will make the presentation. Oh.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. I do have a presentation prepared. Since you had just mentioned the time, I just thought I'd check in with you first to confirm that you'd like me to go through it. It's a brief presentation that outlines information contained in the staff report.
Does anyone have any questions that they need the presentation this evening? No. All right. I don't think we need the presentation. Are there any public speakers on this item? Thank you. Yeah, your hands are kind of full. Next time we can help with that. No public speakers. All right. Does anyone want to make a motion or make a comment? Councilmember Combs has made the motion. I need a second. We have the second. Let's go ahead and vote.
The motion passes unanimously.
All right. Gosh. Next item we have is item I6. Approve the public engagement plan for the Bellhaven Branch Library conceptual design process. Library Services Director Sean Reinhart and Assistant Public Works Director Chris Lamb will make the presentation.
Thank you. Good evening again, Mayor and Council. I think, as my colleague Ms. Diaz mentioned, in recognition of the lateness of the hour, we do have a brief slideshow available that just reiterates some of the key points of the report. We're happy to walk through that. However, if Council prefers, we can simply take questions and have the discussion at your discretion.
Any council member need the presentation this evening? I'm good. Is everyone good? All right. Does anyone have any questions?
We'd be happy to send it to you, yes, and post it.
All right. Anyone have any questions? Okay, then if we could have a motion. Councilmember Councilmember Carlton's made the motion. Councilmember Combs is seconded. Let's go and vote. Great. We are done with our regular items, informational items, City Council agenda topics, August 2019. Those are draft. Does anyone have any questions for staff on that, from our professional staff? No questions for professional staff. City Manager's report. Anything new since yesterday? All right. City Council members' reports. Anything new since yesterday?
I have one too. Go ahead.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Taylor.
Thank you. I just wanted to report that today was the first and last meeting of the year for the Facebook Community Grant. So I am glad that that's over.
All right. Very good. Councilmember Carlton.
I'm going to the Sister City International meeting representing Menlo Park. Just letting you know.
Is the city paying for that?
Yeah, I'll be going there for 2 days. Where is it? It's in Houston.
Okay.
And I'll come back and let you know all the interesting things I've learned at that point. And also letting you all know, and anyone else who's interested, the week of the 19th of August, we have the children from Bizen, Japan coming. The new mayor of Bizen, and some of his delegates are coming a day early to meet with us. And so he will be here on the Monday, and we'll all have dinner with them Monday night. Tuesday, the children arrive, and we're going to give them a tour of campus and all have dinner together here. And then they're going to come to the city council meeting to see what a city council meeting looks like, I assume somewhat briefly. And the mayor wanted to say some words to introduce himself to us as the new mayor. And then Wednesday, we're going to have a picnic in the park for dinner, where we've got the alums for the kids for the past 2 groups that have gone to Japan to meet up and be able to bond and share stories with the kids from Bizen, Japan. And Saturday is going to be the final evening, which is co-sponsored by Mama Coco's. We had it there last time for the final evening. And the city council, staff, interested members of the public are welcome to join in any part of it you'd like. Let us know. I'm just kind of giving you the heads up that that's happening that week. And also to let people know, media, that we are looking right now for people who are interested in hosting children. Usually you get 2 of the children or 2 of the adult chaperones staying with you. And it's a lot of fun. It's an interesting cultural exchange. And we still have some openings. So anyone who's interested in hosting the children or some of the chaperones, contact Clay Curtin. And he'll be happy to send you the information. Or me or anyone on the Sister City Committee.
Okay, and just for clarification, in case it comes up, the city council, so when council members travel, city council doesn't approve the city expenses of that council member traveling. That's something that they work out with the city manager, whether or not it's appropriate travel, but it's not something that we voted on or agreed to. So if there's someone out there saying, why is Councilmember going to that, it's not something that this council would take up and vote on, and I think it's important that that procedure be understood.
There's a list of standard things that is approved for things like League of Cities, but I am reporting out to you that I'm going, and if you have any thing you'd like me to find out while I'm there, let me know, and I will be reporting back to you when I return.
Thank you. Councilmember Nash.
I actually am wondering what sort of staff resources are required for the Sister City visits?
I think the heavy lifting is done by the commissioners. Clay is Clay's awesome. He's a wonderful. He designed the T-shirts. This last trip, he actually went to Japan, and so he's there as a fantastic support mechanism for making sure that the city's aware of everything that's going on.
I just respectfully, Sister City, given the priorities that we have in front of us, is not something that we had discussed, and I'm concerned with Clay being one of the key members of staff that we don't get distracted from our priorities.
Yeah, Clay, we make sure that that's why predominantly it's Brian and Christy Hulch and myself that are planning and organizing and leading the entire group.
Okay, and with that, any more councilmember reports? All right, council meeting is adjourned.